got the Losers Bracket Podcast round 103 tonight. We are here with the normal co-hosts. We've got Jerry, Curt, Rapture as well. We'll be joined by guest FourCourt Rapture. FourCourt Rapture? What is this? Look at this. Uh-oh, Dakota.
Yes.
FourCourtJester will be joining us in just a little bit. Look at this. We had to be on time tonight. We were on time tonight, so I had to mess up something in the intro. Something always goes on, always goes on. But like I was just saying, we are here with the normal co-host. Oh, and check this out. We actually have nameplates tonight. We've got Jerry over here. We've got Curt down here. We have Rapture as well. Let's see how everyone's doing this week. Curt, let's start with you. How's things going, buddy?
Can't complain, bud. It's been a pretty big week for news and stuff going on. Hopefully we'll have enough time. We should have enough time to cover it all tonight. And get on with the weekend so we can go with the Winter Arena coming up. So, yeah. How about you, Dakota? How are you today?
I am good, just chilling. Really great weekend. Obviously got awesome Capcom Unity stuff that just came out. And Winter Brawl 6 was this past weekend, so that's what I was doing. So, just, whatever. Chin-chilling.
Chin-chilling. That's
Chin-chilling.
That's special. Jerry, are you chin-chilling as well?
I don't chin-chill. I don't even know what chin-chill is. What's chin-chilling?
It's chilling harder.
Like extra effort of chilling?
Extra, you're intentionally, really trying to chill hard.
You got a lot of problems, Dakota, but it's good to have you back on the show. No, it's a good week. I mean, we have the sort of, for those who haven't already, obviously spectator passes are on sale. So I see a lot of people purchasing their spectator passes and their, player passes for the event in Columbus coming up at the end of March. And we have the StarCraft 2 arena this weekend. And we have people writing dumb things in eSports press. And we've got, what else we have this week? We have a fantastic guest, obviously with FourCourtJester and talk League of Legends. I have a rant this week again where I'm going to talk about transparency in esports, and we've got all kinds of stuff. So why don't we start with MLG news, Jason? Where do you want to begin?
Oh man, let's start out with the fact that the arena is going on this week. I mean, we've got the final couple of days to buy your pass so that you can watch the pay-per-view stream for the first time, support MLG. That's going to be huge. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then also competitor passes just went on sale for Columbus as well. That's right around the corner at this point. So if you haven't yet and you do plan on playing, definitely want to pick those up. What else is going on in the world of MLG, Curt?
Yeah, I mean, just to remind everybody, just like you said, Jason, the Columbus passes are on sale right now. I think they just went on sale not long ago. I don't remember the exact time. If they're not already sold out, please go pick them up. They will sell out. They go pretty quick, guys, and they're not joking when they say that. Trust me, I've had to buy them off random Reddit users at times, so I understand the frustrations. So yeah, definitely go buy your pass. Winter Arena is coming up this weekend, like you said. If for those that aren't watching it or haven't watched it, MLG recently did their MLG Live segment earlier today, and they released the brackets. I was not able to catch that. I wasn't here for it, but I'm sure they'll be up on Liquipedia soon, so you can look there and sort of see who got paired up against who and who's going to have Nestea first round and cry themselves to sleep, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check that out. The Winter Arena passes are still on sale for those that are people that want to support them and want to buy it despite all the hoopla and backlash this week. Please do so. I would suggest there's a lot of people you can support. If you don't want to support BV Gaming for whatever reason, you can support DJ Wee, you can support Grubby, you can support SteelSeries directly, all kinds of people. So I suggest doing that as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, as far as any other MLG news, and go on with that.
Yeah, most def. Curt, you just lagged out a little bit for me. Can you repeat that? Sorry.
No, he was over. He was at the end of his sentence.
Oh,
Never
hey,
gets
cool.
another chance to speak. That's a
Oh, no.
right
He
there.
might rant about Counter-Strike or something.
We don't know
That's
where he's
horrible.
going to take it if you give him another chance. So, yeah. I want to thank all the people that have been supporting VV Gaming and purchasing the MLG SE2 Arena Pass. So we're going to do something special this weekend. For those of you that don't know, we are going to do kind of like a virtual Barcraft type event where we're going to have our Mumble channel open to the public, so to speak, and people come in and hang out and watch StarCraft. A lot of players have asked for a chance to have some of our players talk them through some of the stuff. So kind of on Friday and Saturday, Saturday early, it'll be geared more toward new players and people who want to learn more about StarCraft in general. And then as the sort of Saturday moves on and obviously Sunday comes around, we're going to be focusing more on sort of higher end gameplay analysis. So we'll have a fun StarCraft weekend in store for everyone because a lot of people have asked for it. So we're going to do that. And yeah, I think that's good. I think that is the MLG news. Speaking of which, speaking of events, Jason, don't you have an event coming up in the rhythm gaming world?
Oh, gosh, we're going to spill the beans right here, I suppose. Well, yes, actually, I've been working pretty hard behind the scenes to try to get an event for the rhythm gaming community up and running on March the 10th. 6 p.m. we will be streaming on this very channel right here a Rhythm Gaming Guitar Hero Invitational with 16 of the best players in the United States competing for some awesome prizes. We're going to have some prizes given to us by the Guitar Hero brand. We'll also have some prizes from some of our sponsors. Gamer Grub is throwing in a couple cases of their product, their energy snack for gamers. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited because this is, to the best of my knowledge, the first time a tournament like this has ever really happened, where there will be commentating going on from both VVV Brock and myself, gameplay analysis, some real in-depth analytical discussion, some interviews. It's going to be a lot of fun. We really look forward to it, and I hope that you join us here on March 10th to check it out and give us your feedback, because if this goes well, we'd like to do more events like this in the future. So pretty exciting for me. I don't know. You guys going to tune in? Curt, I'd like you to give your opinion. I don't know if you can compare CS to Guitar Hero, but
Well, it's like I told you. It's like I told you when we've talked about Guitar Hero a few times in the past. I absolutely loved watching Guitar Hero at WSVG in Dallas 07. I thought it was really interesting, but of course, watching it online might be a completely different thing. But I'll definitely be tuning in to take a look at it, just because I'm curious. Who are some of the top players in Guitar Hero right now? Because I'm sure from 07 they have changed. I remember, Tipper Queen being one that was really popular, and I remember another guy, a bunch of the Pandemic players back then. But who are top of the top now?
Well, I mean, the player in the tournament scene really right now has to be Alec, VVVSI 28. He has not lost a full tournament match since he won the WCG Grand Finals in 2010. So if that tells you anything, he's absolutely a beast, completely consistent. So that's going to be really cool. He will have a little bit of a challenge. There is one player in particular that I've got my eye on for this tournament. We have a gentleman by the name of G Gamer, who has actually never really been a part of any sort of large tournaments that I know of. This will be his first time to really show off to the crowd. I mean, he's absolutely beastly when he's playing by himself. It's going to be really interesting to see if he can keep his calm, cool composure when there is something on the line, when you only have one chance and you have to be dead on. So I'm really looking forward to this. Aside from that, some other players that have been invited. We have actually 4 players from VVV, but then 12 from outside. People such as former Mob gaming player Paradigm Shift will be joining us. A good buddy of mine here in Orlando, Joe Dragtier Ostrom, will be playing. Whitwicks, former United States representative for the World Cyber Games back in, I believe it was the Guitar Hero 3 days. Absolutely stunning list of players, and I cannot wait to see how this turns out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's pretty amazing. It amazes me how quick, well, not necessarily quick, but how players tend to change. Because I don't remember any of those players, but I've definitely heard of them since. And I've heard especially I think you said VVVSI. I have seen that name quite a few times, destroying up the rhythm gaming scene. So does Priest play at all? Do you remember a player called Priest?
Of course, Priest used to play for Pandemic. Yeah, I actually thought about even.
I'm curious. I remember him being really top of the top at in 07, but that's so long ago.
Yeah, Priest, Wolf, back in the day, the top players back when Guitar Hero 2 was still around. he's not really a part of the scene anymore, and I don't know necessarily why that is. I think he just kind of moved on from the game like a lot of people have. I mean, we haven't had a really big competitive event in quite a while, so I'd assume that's why. There is one name that you might remember, and he's actually a member from VVV. If you were watching the WSVG, there was an event, I believe it was in Dallas that this happened, that there was a player on stage that decided he was going to be really ballsy and play the hardest song in the game on stage and show off a little bit, and he ended up failing on stage. And that's our own VV Hell Ashes, and he will be a part of the tournament. He's still one of the best players out there, and he's actually a top-level drummer now, too, which is really cool that he's able to transition and do two instruments at the highest level. So really impressive. I can't wait to see how this turns out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Yep, sounds cool, Jason. Hopefully it runs well so you guys can continue to do some.
Yeah, most definitely. If this goes well, hey, it opens the door for other events, so we'll see what the viewership looks like, and we'll go from there. But aside from that, Jerry, I want to get your opinion on something real quick before we, get into the major news topics and then bring in FourCourt, not Rapture, Jester in just a few minutes. But there was actually a team recently this past week that just ended up disbanding, and I know how you love to talk about teams when they end up going away. So I just noticed that Rain had disbanded, and I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
I mean, I think this highlights the challenge we have across the board. I mean, my central position on this is one that I think we need a lot more transparency, because I still think right now there is just this overinflation of the worth and the value of a lot of the teams and players, and that's what has me concerned about an upcoming the MIT conference. For those of you that don't know, there's going to be a small eSports panel at MIT. For those of you who don't know who MIT is, that's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They're doing a sports analytic conference. So there's an annual conference, basically dealing with sports, everything from hockey to motocross, from soccer to tennis, etc. They're going to do sort of a look at esports. They've got Sundance and Day 9 and Mike from Blizzard. That's Mike Morhaime. For those who don't know Morhaime, he's been with Blizzard for a while. He is the CEO, co-founder, so pretty big name in gaming. And then an odd choice, I guess Alexander Garfield, but I don't know if that would have been my first choice for certain reasons. But I guess at the end of the day, it's not going to cause a lot of harm. I just not so sure that some of the things I've read by him necessarily fit in what I would consider a professional perspective for this conference. But with the other heavy hitters, I'm sure he'll be fine. So, overall, I think that's good. And the reason I say that is because, with Team Rain, I think there's some challenges, I think there's a lot of organizations out there. There's that new one coming up. What are they called, Curt? Like Dust Off or Dust My Ass or Dust? Yeah. So, they're coming out, they're buying a bunch of players, they're getting a team house. And again, sure, that's great. I think that's fantastic. But I think, again, it sort of harkens to, this kind of space. And a lot of lessons learned about the reality of finance and what makes a sustainable business and not relying on sponsorship dollars and all kinds of other things. So it'll be interesting. So I guess my opinion on Team Rain is I'm not surprised. That was basically, IGN, IPL funded. That's really where their cash was coming from. And, they were very short-sighted. If you look at it, it's slightly tragic in the way that they were still picking up players when they already felt that, conversation with their sponsors had decreased. There were all these signs and it feels like they had ignored it. I don't know, Curt, did you get that same impression looking at the timeline of sort of Rain's failure that, again, you have an organization that, I think overcommitted, single-sourced, and, then they failed. But I'm more disappointed that it felt that they were still picking up players when there were all those warning signs there.
Yeah, I mean, much love to Frank, who's the manager over there, Mirhi, who has originally done VT Gaming, which was a pretty popular StarCraft, and I think Brood War team for a little while. So much love to him, but, in the end, I do think it was definitely a little short-sighted. I think the problem with a lot of teams that get a big sponsor out of the gate, they get very complacent, and this would be, I eventually plan on writing some kind of article about trying to help people out that want to start an organization or a team. I mean, I'm not, the best person in the world to take advice from by any means, but I think I've messed up enough times to know what not to do at the very least. And I would say not getting complacent is the big thing. You pick up a big sponsor like IPL, they're sponsoring you, for your house or forever, however you work that out. That's fantastic, but don't get complacent. Don't think that just because they sponsor you, just because you work for them, or just because anything like that, that it's not going to go away the next day, because I'm telling you right now, they can pull the plug whenever they're ready. And I think that's exactly what happened with Rain. It happened very unexpectedly, according to Rain. And for those that are more interested in this, go to esfiworld.com, and you can look up ESFI. Actually did an interview with both David Ting about this and with Frank Fields, who was the general manager of Team Rain at the time. A very vague article because, of course, Frank actually works for IPL. So there's a big conflict of interest there. He can't go bashing on IGN or IPL when he has to go to work the next day. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is just to know not to get complacent with sponsors. Keep on, stay hungry, and don't get ahead of yourself. I mean, to me, announcing a team house right out of the gate is never a good idea, even if your sponsor's willing to support you for it. It's just never a good idea. I mean, we don't even have a team house. We have a player that's living in the U.S. with one of our directors, and still that took us a year and a half to get to a point where we felt comfortable in doing that. And I think that's a smart way to do it. So, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I suppose that at the demise of Rain, you do have two more players or quite a few more players that are on the market that are, probably looking for teams now. One of which is the doctor himself, Kiwi Kaki, who's a little bit crazy, but I'm sure he'll find a team. And Nori, who is a very, very good Protoss player from Korea, actually has already found a team. He got signed by TSL, the Korean team, yesterday. So that's great news. I think Artis is already pretty much signed with the team as well. And then, of course, you have Spades. And I think the real probably tragedy in this whole story is Axlav, who has had a tough month. I'm not sure who keeps up with all that, but Axlav got cut from EG, or I guess that's an off way to put it, but he did. He got cut from EG about a month ago. And then a few weeks ago, Rain announced that, that he was coming on the team. He was going to move in. He moves in, and then a week later, Rain's like, "Oh, we're closing our doors. Sorry." So I think he's really the tragedy there. I feel bad.
Well, but I mean, I also think that's the problem, right? Like, why were they picking up players? You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree completely. And Frank would say the same thing he said in the interview, which is we simply didn't know. According to him, IGN said up until a week before they announced that they were, or a week before they actually got cut, their funding got cut, that they were good to go, that everything was fine. He said that some production staff that had been doing behind the scenes videos for them were laid off, but then they reassured him that did not mean that his funding was being cut or anything like that. That's just his side of the story. We don't necessarily know the truth behind that or anything like that, but that's his side of the story. But I completely agree. Either way, to me, you should see the writing on the wall a little bit. If you have 3 or 4 people living in your house and you still only have one sponsor, you gotta be a little bit more careful there. But yeah, I think in the end, like, Axlav is a tragedy there. I think all the other players will be fine. I think Axlav will be fine, but he got promised the world and really only got about a week of it. So that always sucks. But so that's it with Rain. You got anything else to say about that, Jerry?
No, I mean, they're gone, and so be it. I'm sure players will find a home, but I think it's important to note that it's all players. I mean, if it's too good to be true, maybe there's if it were only that easy. But I guess in this particular case, they felt they had a strong relationship with IPL, and it didn't quite work out the way they had hoped. So, all right, let's keep moving. I want to get to our interview tonight. That's what has me most interested. So,
I do want to hit a few more things if we got time.
Yeah, please, let's do that.
I definitely want to hit. I want to do a quick run through a few of the things I think are really important to cover, and then we'll talk about our final big thing, which I think was really important to talk about.
I know what that's going to be.
Just going to hit a few more things. Number one, Quantic picked up a Dota 2 team today. I'm not sure who saw that. Quantic Gaming. Congrats to marking those guys over there. They picked up the old SK squad. So it was the Monkey Business team. I think their technical name was like DD, whatever the hell that stood for. But they were the old Monkey Business team. They were the old SK team. They've picked them up. No real other information about that, but you can go to, once again, ESFI World. They have a great article on there. Or you can actually go to joindota.com as well, and they'll have an interview on there as well. So check that out. The other really big news that we did not cover last week, because I think was just pretty much happening that night, Complexity spending money again. Jerry, have you seen this? I mean, Complexity's coming balls out. They're no joke. They've said they're tired of being in the shadow a little bit, and they decided they're going to pick up. Early last week, or late last week, they announced that they picked up Nada, which is a legendary StarCraft player. They then also announced that they picked up, most recently, they picked up Killer, which is a really, really amazing player from TSL.
And then they got Hart, right?
They got Hart as well.
Yeah.
Nada, to me, is the big player there, but both of them are the big name player there. But both of them are amazing players, and they probably cost a pretty penny. So, so congrats to them. I think it's good to see them spending money again. I feel like...
they were spending money. They just weren't spending it wisely.
Yeah, well,
that's really the truth.
I agree with that, but I don't think they were spending nowhere near the amount of money that they should have been either, as far as from what they say they have, kind of thing would be my thing. Because what did they have before this? They had the MVP partnership, which works out great for them. They have a Halo team and a subpar. I think that's a good way of saying it. LOL team. And that's pretty much it. So I'm glad to see them spending money again. I think
He has a LOL team.
Complexity did have a LOL team, did?
No, not anymore.
What? Oh, okay, they break up. Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember them not doing very well there for quite some time, and I didn't figure that was going to go too well. But yeah, I'm glad to see them spending money again, and being out there in the scene. And I think Nada especially will do a lot for them and their brand. I do wonder if they're going to do anything with MVP. For instance, if those three players are going to stay in the MVP house, or how that's going to work. I don't know. But I suppose we'll see. There have been really nothing else announced by it. A few more things. The Texas Esports Association announced an event in Texas, which is going to be really, really big. It's called the Lone Star Clash event. I'm not sure if either one of you guys saw this. This was really interesting to me because what they're doing is they're combining the Collegiate Star League, the CSL, with an invite-only tournament, which I'm not a fan of invite-only, but, so be it. Where they're combining basically the CSL, where they invite pro team, or quote-unquote pro teams from a bunch of colleges and invite them to play against, eventually, some of the invite players and stuff like that. So it's really, really interesting, the fact that they do that. And I think the prize pool is $10,000. So, and they've announced so far, I think, Stefano, DeMuslim, Destiny, and Liquid Tyler. So really, really big players, really, really big casters, really big event. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So now, if you want to cover the big news that I want to talk about.
I was just going to say, there's the big news, right? Capcom unveiling the 25th anniversary plans, the $500,000 worth of tournament prizes. This is pretty interesting. I saw some tweets about eSports being the way of the past. We've got C Sports, Capcom Sports, with all this money coming into Street Fighter. I mean, this is pretty interesting to say the least, because this means that it's Capcom not putting money into MLG, right? So where's this money going to be going? Any thoughts, guys?
I mean, Capcom has already expressed like interest in working with Evo, and they have. I mean, from what it seems like, they're going to be running their own tournaments. I'm sure Seth Killian will be behind it. Working with Evo is definitely a possibility. Like maybe making one of the qualifiers of the event itself this summer, one of those places where they'll just dump all the money into, which would be a pretty good idea, to be honest. Get a lot of more interest in at least foreign players. I mean, a lot of people were saying that this was going to happen. There's a lot of rumors behind this, especially because Capcom was like, we're not helping MLG, something like that. And it's weird because of MLG just announcing all the money going into Mortal Kombat. There's a lot of money going into the fighting game community, and I think Capcom is really going to pursue working with Evo, working with the other Evo qualifiers, and then maybe doing like a few of their own smaller or just as big events that Seth Killian will probably be behind the helm of, to be honest.
Do you think there's any chance of this signals IPL being their choice?
IPL could also be an opportunity. I think the thing is that Capcom may want to stay more grassroots, if anything. The same reason why they don't want to maybe necessarily put money into MLG. I mean, Capcom loves the fact that you know the community does their own tournaments, and they've been putting a lot of stuff into Street Fighter Cross Tekken as well, which hasn't gotten the best reception from the fighting game community in general. But, I mean, as I said, it seems like they want to support more of the grassroots. IPL is still an option. I think anything's an option at this point. Capcom really hasn't said much. Any tournament that's been established or is going to be established or has potential is just as much of a candidate to get this money as anyone else is. I still think Evo is a really big one, and they have their own tournaments. So I think IPL is definitely in the running, maybe not so much as Evo or anything like that. But yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the guaranteed stuff happen. Evo is going to happen as always. They'll put money into the Evo Road to Evo events and stuff like that, just like they always have. But I really think the missing link here, as far as some of the money going in this, is IPL. I really think IPL has done it. They've figured out a way to make Capcom happy and pitch it well. Maybe probably with the strong support of Rob Dog over there. I forgot his last name, but
Rob.
Jedi Rob. There we go. And
yeah.
I'm thinking that I'm sure he was definitely a guy to help a lot with that. And I think you can actually see this as well, because if you and Slasher pointed this out on Twitter as well as before that, our boy Protom Cannon, who we had on the show a few weeks back, pointed it out as well.
Right.
The fact that the Street Fighter Cross Tekken is actually being presented with IGN. It's actually, they're working directly with IGN to, I think, as a distribution partner to distribute the Cross Assault Street Fighter Cross Tekken reality series thing. So there's definitely some relationships there. I don't think that money's coming out of thin air. I don't think it's just going to go to even making Evo bigger. I really think it's IPL is the missing link there, and I think you're going to see, probably, my guess, it'll be announced soon. That's my guess, because IPL 4 is coming up soon, as people can guess. So you know the announcement's got to come soon.
Also interesting to point out that they're going to be covering like games from across Street Fighter's history. Like I'm sure they're going to do a lot of like the crossover games that had the old like Marvel vs. Street Fighter, that old game. But I mean, the fact that they may be putting money into really old games that nobody plays anymore with IPL, that's why I see more of like grassroots support. But then again, I mean, I don't know. Capcom really needs to say more. It's very vague. But again, yeah, I can see that IPL kind of working with it.
To me, that's another reason that leads me to believe that it has something to do with IPL, because everyone else has been announced. Evo's announced some of their stuff. They've announced their location. And I think
everything's already announced for Evo.
But what's not announced? IPL.
That's true. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And I don't think Capcom's really out there to be like, all right, let's do our own tournament series and get in everybody's way. I really don't think they're trying to do that. So, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So you're probably right with that.
Yeah, so I hope so, because I think IPL needs it, and I think, despite the fighting game community saying they don't need it, that's bullshit. I think it'll be great for them to have it. I think they realize that, even though they might not want to admit it. So
the fighting community is so like back and forth with the crap of who they want to support them and all that kind of stuff, and they just want money to come out of thin air. and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I talk to are like, oh, do we need IPL? Do we need MLG? And that kind of stuff. I don't think it's necessarily needed. It's just that they don't really want anyone stepping, quote unquote, on their territory and kind of that bullshit, which I can understand a lot of it. And I've talked to a lot of the people in the scene, and I can see their reason to be, wavering on it. And we've talked about this, and this was, the whole esports versus fighting game community thing that was, really big at the end of last year. That it comes back to that, like how much room are they really, like how much room is the fighting game community going to give to quote unquote esports to allow things like this to happen? I think Capcom just like, well, we're just going to do it because it's a smart thing, and everyone that realizes that it's a smart decision knows this is a good decision, and everyone else that doesn't will figure it out.
I mean, I think that's the same thing that you see with Activision doing with Call of Duty, Blizzard obviously taking its BlizzCon into a championship in Asia. I mean, you see a lot of things going on, and I think at the end of the day, Capcom wants in on the action or believes that model may work for them. I probably don't share that is really in their best interest, but to be honest, a lot about Capcom from a business perspective confuses me. I mean, if you look at Capcom as a company, they've had a brain drain going on now for quite some time. It was in Game Informer, it was talked about in other places. I'm not getting the vibe of a company that is very effective at what it's doing. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not a fan of the way they run their business. It wouldn't be a company I'd invest in, and it's not one that I'm really excited about their future. They own a lot of great IPs, but financially they're not in a strong position. So we know they set aside $500,000 for tournaments, and the places where I would put that money, like in IPL or Major League Gaming, are not the first places they may put it, and we'll see what happens, throughout over time. This feels like one of those. Blizzard's done it, Activision has done it, Valve did it for Dota. Maybe we should do it too. League of Legends has done it, obviously Riot. So it feels like one of those decisions, not one that generally impresses me. And also 25 years of Street Fighter, and all you can come up with is $500,000. No offense, that was many years ago. We're having single events that can pull off $1 million. You're talking about 500,000 over many events. Again, for maybe grassroots efforts, that's really fantastic. But I'll be honest, I'm not that excited. Just to be fair,
Yeah, I mean, to me, one of the most confusing things that. Oh, Jason, go ahead, buddy.
No, I was going to end the segment, so go ahead. You've got last word, and then I'm going to bring it on from there.
To me, one of the most confusing things with it is just the fact that. Well, we're not necessarily the most confusing, but it definitely reinforces the IPL thing. It's just because of the fact that they were investing in this before. They were doing this with Evo before. They were doing this with, a bunch of other events before. I think Devastation and stuff like that. Why would they make a big deal about it this time if it wasn't for something different? And it's just like not a pleasant amount. So I think it's going to be different. I hope it's going to be different. And I definitely hope that we see it at IPL, and I honestly hope they forgive MLG. I mean, Sundance talked about it on Live on 3 how, one of the main reasons that they weren't so willing to talk with them is because of what had happened when he wasn't around. When I guess what he means by that is when Bromberg and those guys were taking things over, and some bad decisions that were made then. So I'm hoping Capcom gets a good taste in their mouth from IPL, and they eventually say, hey, MLG's done well with Mortal Kombat this year. Let's give it over to MLG too. So
well, and they still might, because I got the impression Sundance has said that Capcom says we'll do something, and it's just never come back to them. Really, it's never a no. So it may end up being something that they get involved with. So it's really hard to tell now where it's all going to sort of end up. But I think that's equally as important, is to get that. Get that out there, get their title, their 25th anniversary celebration in many places as possible. That's what I think they should do. But Jason, I know you want to wrap it up. We got to move forward. So
yeah,
I don't want
to. Definitely. we were talking before about we were getting excited about things in the fighting game world. I will say that in just a few weeks, I think about 3 weeks from now, if I have my dates correct, we should be getting someone from the fighting game community, Mr. Alex Jabali, who'll be a guest on the show.
My dude. Yes.
Yeah, he runs CEO here in Florida, so he's a pretty awesome dude. I had the chance to talk with him a little bit at a recent local event here in Orlando, and he will be joining us rather soon. By then, we should have all the details for what fighting games are going to be at Columbus, which games MLG is going to have. If IPL announces anything 3 weeks from now, we should probably know about it. So with all that, we will have a pretty darn good discussion. I am definitely excited, and I'm looking forward to that. But aside from that, I'm also looking forward to our guest tonight, which is a great segue into bringing on Mr. FourCourtJester. So, Shaun, I'd like to welcome you over to the show, my friend. And how are you doing, first of all, tonight, my man?
It's been a pretty decent day for various reasons. Can't say I've felt this good in a while. But to top it off, on the losers bracket, so good times.
Yeah,
welcome,
definitely,
Shaun.
man.
Welcome.
Yeah, great to finally have you on the show, and I think it's been a long time coming. We've talked about it. I mean, I remember talking to you about it all the way back at Devastation last year. We just mentioned Jedi Raw before, so we had run into each other.
Was it Devastation or Rally that we met?
Well, I think we were at both, and I pestered you a couple times at Devastation. Okay. Yeah, so. But for those that might not know as much about you, let's get a little bit of your history, who you are, what you do in gaming, and what you're currently playing.
Well, what I do is I wear an awesome hat and get ridiculed for it a lot of the time. But on a more deeper level, what I do is I picked up League of Legends about 14 months ago, I'd say. About 14 months ago. And I had started transitioning over from Heroes of Newerth commentating over into League of Legends. I was kind of really new at the time, but I wanted to start getting some content out, and that really kind of got my foot into the door into the fledgling scene that has now become some kind of massively viewed phenomenon. You've seen the numbers on Owned. I mean, they just do not lie. People love this game. So I'm pretty fortunate I got in when I did, and I try to, entertain the masses. I like to do commentary. It's not exactly analytical or pro insight, but I try to make it as enjoyable as possible. Some people appreciate the effort, some don't, but, you just keep working away at it, and got to go to MLG, got to meet you fine gentlemen here, the VVV Gaming, and I got to go to Devastation. I do multiple online events now. People are asking me how to get into this. People are saying, how do you do this? What's your trick for that? It's quite amazing how everything has come together. But that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly what was it that got you into doing casting?
Well, I got to attribute it to a bunch of guys known as Honcast. They were doing Heroes of Newerth, which, was a compilation or at least an attempt to get Dota into its own, hemisphere. And from there, I was just like relearning all the Han stuff because I'm a big Dota guy. I played a lot of that during high school, during university. I can say Diablo 2 and Dota and Warcraft 3, they were predominantly the lifeblood that got me through university days. And I started learning Heroes of Newerth, and this company called Honcast was doing all the commentating for all the beta tournaments going on. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'd heard of this stuff, but never actually got to sit down and listen to it. Sat down and listened to it. Like that was really good. And I started listening more and more to them, and like, you know what, I could probably do what they do. So I tried. I failed. But not everybody's first steps into everything is ever going to succeed. You just keep working at it, and you start polishing it up. And I got to tell you, commentating's really done a good number on my public speaking skills. But yeah, I got to really say, Honcast is the guys that got me into it.
That's really cool. Curt, I don't know if you've ever had the chance to really talk with Curt too much. I'd love to hear which questions you've got for him, because you always have some amazing things to bring up. So, Curt, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, I actually have not had a chance to talk with you too much, but I keep up with the LOL community, but kind of like my pinky. Instead of having my full hand on it like StarCraft, I have my pinky on it. And that's just because I don't have a team there, I think. Maybe I can't afford one. I don't know. But But yeah, I mean, maybe that's just why. But I do love it. I play it way too much. It definitely eats way too much of my time. I mean, really. But I haven't had a chance to talk to you too much, so I hate to come out with the juicy questions first. But Jerry put me on the spot by asking me to go first anyway. So I got to ask a question that I ask pretty much anyone that has anything to do with LOL, and especially someone that's doing commentary and personality stuff.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems with doing esports commentary for League of Legends, and it doesn't seem to be bothering you at all, but I'm curious as to how it works, in relationship with you. All of the Riot events, or all the events that LOL seem to be at LAN at least, they tend to have Riot casters there. It's mainly Riot people. It's either Rivington or I forgot the other guy's name, or Freak, or any of those guys, and and they all do an amazing job. Definitely not. I love Rivington, so I'm not shutting down anybody, but I am curious how that affects you. If it affects you negatively, if you would like to see yourself doing the LAN casting a lot more, or if you just want to stick to the online stuff. What are you thinking?
Well, it's a twofold issue. When you saturate the market with only a certain amount of people, everyone goes towards those people for future events, which means you have a very limited pool and a lot of events, and basically you just stretch people so thin that you can't satisfy everyone, which means you got to start turning more towards the community. Right now, at all the major events, it's Riot, and it's actually Riot and ESL. And ESL, love the guys at ESL. They're great guys. I'm a little jealous that since they get to do a lot of the EU scene there, but the whole thing started because we don't actually have a real replay system for League of Legends, and we just within the last 3-4 months have now a stable public spectator UI. Everything before that was Tournament Realm, and everything before that was Riot in-house, which is why you predominantly see Riot at everywhere, because they have the most experience in these things. ESL got their foot in the door because they're really experienced with a lot of other games. Joe Miller, very established caster for Counter-Strike. So he got into there. He played the game. He does a fantastic job. They brought on Demand, and they do great. But you have to have really big credit, or you have to be a Riot member really to get your foot in the door. Me as a community caster, what I used to do is we used to run 4-on-4s. That would be it. One guy on the other team, one guy on my team, and we would just have half the vision for the camera, and the other guy would be on the other team. It's like, well, I can't see what your team is doing, but tell me what's going on. And that's how we used to do it. That's like very bare bones how you used to do it. You go 4-on-4 with 2 commentators, 1 on each side, and you got to move around every now and then so the AFK message doesn't come up, which is really annoying. But then we got into the Tournament Realm, and Tournament Realm was stable more often than not. We've had some pretty spectacular crashes, if you recall MLG Rally. That's unfortunate events, but that kind of stuff does happen. And because it is again all Tournament Realm, I mean it's still going to be Riot's domain. I mean they're the ones that hold all the keys to it, and it's really hard to get past that. So now we have a public spectator UI, and I've been seeing a big growth in casters. A lot of high elo players or a lot of pro commentators are now starting to switch over, or even pro players. Like, for example, Destiny. He's a perfect example. He loves the StarCraft. He's been playing a lot of League of Legends.
Mia Rose.
I said pro players.
Oh.
She plays something, all right, but no.
She plays WoW, yeah. To be fair, yeah, she's really high ranked in WoW. But I've seen her League of Legends, and I'm not a fan. It's a personal issue with me, personally, but.
I gotcha.
Thanks for throwing me that curveball, Drake.
Anytime. I gotta be good for something. If I can't reference porn stars in at least one show, it's got to every show.
That's your selling point, isn't it? You gotta get star in there.
VVV losers bracket. We have porn stars. Yeah, no, I'm joking.
Wow.
No, yeah, but was a lot harder than it is now. At least there's a public beta spec UI, and we have LOL replay, third-party program granted. But we're getting to the step. We never really, Riot never really intended this to get as big as it has. And 40 million people later, we should probably try to appease this a little bit.
I completely agree, man. I think you have a right answer. I think it's not necessarily something they want to do long term. I hope. I'm hoping it's something that they want to gradually wean themselves off of Rivington going to every event and casting and the rest of the guys. So.
It's expensive. I mean, I know they're swimming in money, but
yeah, I mean, it's got to be a useless expense when the casters they'll pay for it. But I do have one other question, and then I'll let Jerry go because I know he's ready to go any time now. You mentioned Joe Miller, and you mentioned how well he had transferred over. I want to know, number one, is that true, or were you just being nice? Because a lot of casters have real problems transferring over. There are very few casters, especially that can transfer over to something like an FPS game into an RTS game or a MOBA game or something like that. A perfect example to me, and I got to give Corey Dunn shit, is when they asked Corey Dunn to cast World of Warcraft Arena 3v3 PvP, I think it was at the time, at WSVG. And he's a 1.6 caster from back in the day. And he's like, so he's doing that flashy thing with the smoke comes out. Oh, he healed. Yeah. So I want to know. I mean, I haven't watched Joe cast that much. Is he actually really good?
No, they do a fantastic job. Neither of them are pro players, but they have the commentary, they have the personality, and they do their research, which is a huge help because a lot of League of Legends players, or at least commentators, they don't do their research. So when you come to those awkward lulls in the game, you don't really have anything to talk about. But Joe and Demand, they've been doing it a while. They have a lot of knowledge under their belt, and they deliver it in really good order. I mean, these guys are really popular in the EU, and there's a reason for that. It's not because we're blowing smoke up their ass.
Good. I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm glad to hear that he's actually been able to transfer over. Another one of the successful Counter-Strike people, Jerry. Back to you.
Oh, no.
You even managed to get a Counter-Strike reference in there.
Counter-Strike. We're on fire today.
Porn stars, Counter-Strike. Oh, my God. This episode.
It's a slow news week is what that means. Anyway, so let's get right into a really big question I have, and that is the League of Legends scene versus almost any other game. As an outsider looking in, League of Legends has a few core teams. It's not a space that organizations like EG or others have necessarily done well in. There have been some, one or two minor exceptions come to mind, but and maybe possibly a lot of that is because of Riot's investment. And you see teams picking up Dota teams. EG did, Quantic did.
Yep.
What do you see this whole MOBA space going? I mean, everyone's sort of written off Han, and everybody feels that it's League of Legends versus Dota. I'm not sure what that versus is, but how would you put your sort of thoughts on this space, where it is now and where it's headed?
I wouldn't write off Han completely, not yet. They're still doing fairly steady hero production, and they're still Xander K, one of my co-hosts for MOBA Weeklies, their community manager. I mean, they're very involved with their community, or at least they're getting to that stage. And Dota 2 is still in beta. Yes, it has big tournaments, and yes, there's popular teams, but so was Han in its beta phases as well. As soon as it went live, and as soon as you put a price on it, people just kind of fell off onto it. And then they, got forced into free-to-play. I still have a suspicion Dota 2 will not be free-to-play. It's just my suspicion. I have nothing to back it up. But I'm very afraid that it might actually have the same kind of effect. Everybody's playing it. Everybody got into the Dota. It's, great, awesome. Oh, there's now a price associated with it. Okay, bye. Going back to Dota 1, I'm very afraid that might happen. In terms of the space, Dota 2 is probably not going anywhere. League of Legends has the casual market pretty much cornered in terms of population. 40 million, over 4 million uniques a day, and growing. And that we're getting a lot of global support for that as well. It does kind of seem like that will be the fight going on out. But I'm going to really wait to reserve an opinion until Dota 2 comes out of beta. And I want to see if there's a price associated with it. Because that's really going to sway, what my predictions would really be. I need to know if there's going to be a price or not.
Well, knowing that, I mean, that's interesting. Why do you think the organizations that have picked up Dota 2 teams have done so? What would you say is the motivation? And some people are asking, will Dota be big in Europe, and will League of Legends be big in North America? who will dominate in Asia? I see there seems to be a lot of jockeying in the various markets. I just wanted to get your sort of perspective on that.
Well, I think we came out with a poll in Taiwan, and 1 in 5 people play League of Legends at this point. 20% of the population in Taiwan play League of Legends, which is a ludicrous number because there's a lot of people in Taiwan. Similar idea for League of Legends in China, for example. We got some pretty pro teams in China that just came out of swinging. Now,
swilling is good, but I think they're
swinging. Yeah, quite correct. And they did some amazing work. They blew everyone away. It's just like, who are these guys, and why are they beating all of our favorites in NA and EU? But to be fair, Dota has had a long time in China, and a lot of those viewers at that international, the quote 3 million viewers at the international back last August. I would say a huge chunk of that is the China market. So in terms of Asia, I'd say Korea, Taiwan, they're really huge right now into League of Legends. Like in Korea especially, we got new leagues announcing, new TV shows, there's a $200,000 tournament going on, and now League of Legends has even surpassed StarCraft players in Korea as well, according to their weekly census things. I don't know how they validate that, but that's just what they were reporting. So it's on the rise. Do we even have like the Dota 2 beta fully implemented in China yet? Because I know there's always those big censorship hurdles that people got to go through if they want to market in China. Like World of Warcraft, for example, is always a version behind because they're always reskinning all those bones and blood and stuff. So I don't know if it's really penetrated the market quite yet, as big as it could. But right now, League of Legends is doing exceptionally well in the Asian markets. In Europe, I'm not too sure, but there's a lot of Europe players. We had to split the server base in two for League of Legends Europe. Like we couldn't handle the amount of people playing that. North America, it's probably about 50-50. At least it should be about 50-50. North Americans are they're very opinionated. They're like, "Yay, LOL," or "God, I hate LOL," and the same with Dota. "Yay, Dota," or "God, I hate Dota." So that's kind of how I see it based upon my my information at this point.
A lot of good insight there. A lot of good insight. With there being, teams that are really well known, with so many people playing it, one could guess there must be a plethora of teams who are really, really good, but no one really knows about. Do you think that there's some kind of lack of coverage for that kind of thing in the League of Legends sort of space? I mean, does one have to go to Team Solo Mid, for example, to get news? Does one have to go to, other sites that are more associated with teams to get news? I just want to get a feel for, like, where do those teams live, and do they get recognition, and if so, where?
If they get recognition, it's not in any English-speaking market that I've ever visited. And on that point, like, going to one site that lists everything about the competitive scene, like we don't have a Team Liquid of League of Legends at this point. I know various sites are trying to get to that point, but they're still kind of lacking. And information is kind of spread all over the place, or everything is trying to be in-house so that they become the exclusive source for everyone. So in that kind of regard, if there's so many people over in the Asian markets playing this game, and we've only ever heard of like 3 or 4 pro teams, there has to be some kind of hidden market that I'm just not privy to. But I'm very confident it's there. Like apparently, like we have tournaments every day in Taiwan, and I've never ever seen any advertising for it whatsoever in an English market. So by market, I kind of mean like forums, Twitter, news sites. It's always like translated or retranslated way after the fact. And we don't really have that comprehensive one site that everybody goes to for competitive. Everyone's like split between CLG or Absolute Legends or Team Solo Mid. Really annoying stuff like that.
All right,
I hear you. Well, Jason, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say Jason's got a question here.
Sure.
Yeah, so we're talking about the entire scene. We've talked about Han. We've talked about Dota 2. And how League of Legends kind of has the casual market. There's still one game I like to bring it up a lot because I really think it is going to make a big impact when it does come out. What effect do you feel that Blizzard Dota is going to have on the market? Because I really feel like the fact that that's going to be implemented with StarCraft 2, that game's going to be quite an interesting addition to the already crowded scene. What impact do you think it will have?
Well, there's one big crucial difference between the existing MOBAs that people play and Blizzard Dota, and that's that you have to own StarCraft 2 to play it. Which means if you want to play it, you have to either buy StarCraft 2 or you already own StarCraft 2, which majority of the MOBA guys either do or do not. So, because if they're playing MOBAs, not a lot of cross into like the RTSs. It's kind of weird because it's the other way around. A lot of StarCraft folks seem to have league accounts, Dota accounts, Han accounts, which is very interesting. As I said, I brought up Destiny, and you can probably find a lot more. Huck, I know, for example, loves League of Legends, which is kind of weird because he's a big StarCraft guy. But anyways, I'm getting a little off topic there. In terms of Blizzard Dota, I don't foresee it really affecting the market so much because it is exactly what Dota used to be, a map in another game. If people want to play it, they have to buy the game. I don't know if people want to submit themselves from all these freemium games to all of a sudden you got to pay $60. You're region locked. You can't play with friends halfway across the world. So I see that more as a gift kind of to StarCraft 2 players that came from Warcraft 3. It's a fun game. It's going to be casual. It's likely not going to be competitive in terms, yes, there will be tournaments. Yes, people will offer money and make teams, but it's not going to be quite as competitive in the same sense as LoL, Dota, and Han, because, again, it's going to be based in StarCraft 2. Because Blizzard does, quote, they don't want to have Diablo 3 competitive, I can't imagine they're going to turn around and try to make a map in a game, not related to anything else, that you got to pay money for and region locked into a competitive title. I can't imagine Blizzard would do that.
Interesting look on that. Very interesting. So that's wow. Okay, I haven't heard that opinion before. I'm glad I asked you that. So, because honestly, I'd been thinking, and this is just what I had been thinking personally, because we have so many people out there playing StarCraft and so many people in the competitive scene, that it would be a very easy transition if they were to have that. So, I'm glad that I had the chance to ask that. Let me pass it back over to you, Jerry. Uh-oh.
Jerry, there?
Jerry was struggling. I had my screen minimized. I had to reopen it up I was looking at something on Blizzard Dota. I had to be sure, and Curt, you might want to correct me. Didn't Sundance mention something about Blizzard Dota?
I felt like he did during the Live on 3 thing.
If he did, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
On LO3, he definitely did. But that being said, I don't think it was necessarily anything more than, well, Blizzard's a good, easy person to work with, so I would, rather work with them than someone like Valve. I think, if anything, because they had mentioned Dota 2. So I mean, I think it was very casual, very, I don't think it's necessarily been talked about that much. Would be my guess.
I don't think there's going to be a big pull from like LoL or Han or Dota to go play the Blizzard Dota, but the StarCrafters, they might unwind with it. But that kind of tells me it's going to be a casual thing because they're going to be focused on, their one-on-ones, not their 5v5 teamwork in Blizzard Dota.
I don't think in the end, in my opinion, anyone can pull away from. I don't think anyone can really pull significantly away from LOL right now in any game for that's a MOBA genre. I don't see Dota 2 doing it. I don't see Blizzard Dota doing it. It's completely different. To me, it's almost completely different. Not necessarily a completely different community, but it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. It's like one is at let's say 5 million uniques a day, and one is just going to be something a little bit more casual. That almost it's kind of like a different crowd for the casual. I don't know. I just don't see it pulling that much away. And not to mention, to me, I mean, with Riot putting in all the money they are, I think as long as they continue to do that, I don't think they really have any problems. But
I think there's one other thing worth mentioning, though, right before we move away from this, which is that it could be an easier game to spectate with Blizzard Dota. It'd be easier to get into spectating-wise, and here's why. There's recognition instantly of the characters that are in it. So for a spectator that's walking by and they see Arthas prancing across the screen, or they say, Kerrigan, Queen of Blades, they're instantly going to be like, oh, well, what is this, if they don't know what it is? So yet again, one other point worth bringing up is there's that instant, oh, I know that character. What are they doing in this game?
Can I throw a little little theory out there about why the casual market's so important? I bet if you looked at casual gamers, I suspect that they, and we have to be careful when we say casual gamers. I think we're saying those who aren't competitive focused. They like competitive games, but they don't have any ambitions to be a top competitive gamer. They're definitely not a hardcore competitive gamer in the sense of having to compete all the time, although they like it. And we say the word casual, and I want to be careful because when I think of casual gamers, I generally think of Farmville and much more Angry Birds kind of stuff. But let's talk about these less competitive, less hardcore competitive gamers. I think they suck. Like, they actually are not good players. And not good players, like human nature, we tend to, stop playing the things we're not good at. We create all kinds of horrible reasons for the reason people, make up. But I think like that community sort of cycles itself. So, you start out in League of Legends, you go to Dota 2 where you're absolutely horrible, you go back to League of Legends. I think that same crowd will try out the StarCraft Dota because of the familiarity and the sort of fact that it's, going to be more aimed at them. And then I think we're going to see after that an evening out, right? And we don't know for sure if Blizzard isn't going to give it away for free either. Although everything lives on their BattleNet, and I'm not so sure that's in Blizzard's future either. But you never know. They did the whole. How does it work? You could get Diablo 3 if you owned World of Warcraft free. Is that how that works?
You subscribed for a year, and then you got Diablo 3 for free afterward.
What a horrid decision. I may not buy Diablo 3 just because of that reason. That's just my hatred of WoW coming out. I have to let that go. Let it go. But I think at the same level, you're going to see a lot of that shuffling around. But it does feel a little bit like a real challenge because they're making business decisions, right? Blizzard and Activision are looking at all the ways they can, cash in on their IPs, and Blizzard doing a StarCraft Dota is just one more way to cash in on that IP. To me, tournaments are a byproduct of that. So I think I kind of agree, but at the same time, if they have a great relationship with Major League Gaming or someone else, they may want to pay for it to be on a circuit. You never know. Certainly Riot's paying for their games to be in places and paying quite well for it.
Yep, that's for sure. Yeah, and that's one of the issues that people always bring up in MOBA Weekly. It's like, LoL shouldn't be an esport because of this and this and this. But the biggest reason that people come up with is because it's paying its way in. It's not relying upon its merits.
Yeah,
like Dota 2 or
this is the thing. I say this a lot. This is the thing about dealing with young people. That's cute. Like, that's really cute. Like, that humors me. Like, let's all get along, the nice sort of naivety. But I would have the exact opposite view. I think that paying for it is the most legitimate way to do it. You should be investing in the community. And anyone who argues that Riot investing in esports is paying their way to be there is either A, naive, or B, just doesn't like League of Legends and is looking for some bullshit reason to pew it. There's no legitimacy behind that position. And a matter of fact, anybody who has that position, I'd love to just shit on them right now. So if you think anybody out there that believes that League of Legends bought their way into esports, you're naive. You really need help. You do. Matter of fact, you probably need to go to school, to be honest. It's probably what you most need is education, to be fair. Because you're the kind of, person that babbles pointless shit, that kind of shit that's like vague and generic. And as soon as you put it sort of under scrutiny, it kind of falls apart because it's not very well thought out. It's just sort of like your nerdy hatred of another game, finding a way to spin some sort of negative thing about a game.
Now, speaking of that nerdy hatred, I got a question regarding that nerdy hatred, which, Jester, I'm sure you've heard quite a few times. A lot of people talk about the fact that, according to the figures in the community that have been around for a long time, that LOL is the more casual of the game. It's not as hardcore as far as hard. It's not as athletic, I guess, as you could say in esports terms, as something like Dota or something like even Han. What do you have to say to that? Do you just think that's true, but who gives a fuck? Or do you not necessarily agree with it at all?
I'm going to go with easy to get into, but hard to master. It's just like any other video game. You might say it's easy, but come to me as a total noob, level 1, get to 30, and then get top 100, and I'll believe you, it's easy, sure. The only person that ever really do that is Chu. Chu from Dota to Han to LOL to whatever the hell he's doing now. It seems to go back and forth. He's the only real gamer that has really proved that, yes, it's easy, but Chu is kind of on a huge level that a lot of people are just not.
He's done so many. How many games has that fucking guy played?
Well, he pro Dota, into pro Han, into what's trying to be pro LOL now, but he got rank 1. I mean, he joined the ladder. He did what MilkFat couldn't do. And for those that don't know, MilkFat was a Han gamer. And he's like, do you know what? LOL's so easy. I can get rank 1 in 90 days from start to finish. 90 days. That's all he needs. And he didn't ever make it.
Hold on a second, though. Not to be like pew that stupid thing, too. God. I just got to be a kick on stupid people. And what does that prove?
Oh, I guess
what is there, the fucking 90-day rule?
90-day rule is a self-imposed.
Oh, I'm serious. How do people come up with stupid shit like this? I get to rank 1 in 90 days, therefore it's easy. Oh, and what's challenging then there?
I don't know, man, but that's what he said he would do.
And on top of that, not to be even more sort of like, are you fucking shitting me, asshole? But let's not forget, this isn't a fucking single-player game. Who the fuck cares if you get to number 1 of whatever fucking single solo rank queue you happen to get into? What kind of a fucking shit is that?
Hey now, Jerry, be nice. This is the guy that just broke the MOBA record for most hours played at a single session. Isn't that right, Jester?
He definitely shattered the record for.
He got like
76 hours or something.
76 hours straight.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yep. He raised a lot of money. That's for sure.
He did, man. He did. So
I don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on MilkFat. I'm just saying that people come to this game and they say, "Oh, it's easy," but it's a subjective opinion that they can't seem to validate because they're not in an instigate the guy whoever's the top of the Quake League in one shot because it's instigate mode. Like, okay, well, this game was easy. I killed him. Well, of course I killed him. It's one shot kill mode.
Yeah. Well, also rank 1.
That game's easy.
Rank one doesn't necessarily prove anything either. It's kind of like I hate to bring it back up. Counter-Strike. It's a lot like Counter-Strike. You could be a pub star all the fucking time you wanted back in Counter-Strike days. You could rape up the pub. You could destroy the pub. But when it comes to actually playing in a team game like League of Legends, that is so important in the team aspect, you suck at it, So, yeah, I agree. I think people like that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I think, completely different games. Once again, comparing apples and oranges.
Now, but to finish the opinion, I'm not going to sit here and say that LoL is the easiest game in the world. I'm not going to sit here and say that's the most hardcore game in the world. In terms of mechanically things to do, yes, it has less to do in lane than both Heroes of Nerith and Dota 2. You cannot deny creeps. You can't stack the jungle, and various other mechanics that our people are just so used to. They're just predominantly are just used to this opinion, and we don't have that in LoL. So yes, there is less to do, but I just always stick to the answer. It's easy to get into, which is why there's so many people playing it, but it's hard to master, which is why about 10% of the population is anything above 1800 elo. I think the top pro right now is 2400, and to get platinum, I think you need higher than 2000. To get gold, you need higher than 1600, and that's like 10 to 20% of the entire population. If it's so easy, why don't we have more people up there? So that's just the response I give people. Yes, there's less to do. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an easier game, but people have their opinions. So.
Yeah, I agree. And to bring that up just quickly about the game mechanics you were talking about there, why do you think Riot hasn't implemented some of those changes that a bunch of the community seem to be wanting, whether that be something like denying creep, or whether that be something like stacking the jungle, or whether that be, what's the other one? I forgot the other one, but there's various things from other games that people but they could make it a little bit more competitive, a little bit more interesting. Is there a particular reason you think Riot hasn't done that, or do you think they just haven't got around to possibly thinking about doing it?
Well, there's a few probably different things, and The first I'm going to list is the bad blood between IceFrog and Pendragon. In case people didn't know, Pendragon, the president of LoL, or at least the top community guy, used to work very much with IceFrog, and apparently they had a huge falling out, which is why Pendragon went one way and IceFrog went the other. So in terms of that, they went to make a nice, friendly game that had no bearing to esports. At the time, they just wanted to make a game that corrected a lot of mistakes and, I guess, followed the Pendragon vision rather than the IceFrog vision. I don't think the IceFrog or the Pendragon vision had denying of creeps in it or jungling stack. They wanted to make it easier to get more people into it because, as you may or may not know, join a random Dota game, join a random Han game, say you're a noob, and just watch the gigantic backlash that will fall upon your head. You didn't know how to do this. You didn't know how to do that. You're dying. You're feeding. You're sucking. It can really get pretty overwhelming for new players. They didn't want to create that kind of atmosphere. They didn't want to have anything counterintuitive. They didn't want to have anything overly complex. They wanted a nice, easy game for people to get into, which I would say they largely succeeded. And then they were able to successfully monetize it. And that's kind of when the whole esport thing started taking off, when people started maxing out levels and ranks and teams, blah, blah, blah. So why don't they implement that stuff? I just don't think it's in their vision, and to go against it now would probably alienate majority of the people that signed up to play.
Interesting. I wonder if maybe slowly introducing new features might actually be a better way to teach people how to play, meaning you have a pretty significant population that now plays League of Legends, and I wonder if they introduced one mechanic, like, let's say, denying, so that now when you're in a lane, you have the opportunity to do something different. If that might not necessarily, if it were successful, sort of be a competitive advantage down the road. Of course, as we often discover, change sometimes doesn't go over well. You have to do it right. You'd have to get consensus, and people have to test it, and they'd have to like it. But I've always felt that people look at games like that they're too static. Any of those things could be implemented, and if they do decide to do them one at a time or explore some of these in another version or a test server of sorts for this, I think you never know. I mean, it could oddly, by eliminating all of those arguments about why Dota 2 is quote-unquote harder or better, really give League of Legends that sort of dominance. Of course, I do understand, though, that if you do that, you do artificially recreate the barrier to entry, and you may not want to do that. So,
but there's a way you could get around that, Jerry, which is, I mean, they've already implemented Dominion. Couldn't they just create another mode, maybe tweak it a little bit? That way you still have the integrity of the first version of the game that they've come out with, have Dominion.
You know what? I'm not a fan of that, because I think, and the way I see it is, I always feel like what people do is that they end up kind of getting elitist about it. Oh, you play that version, that's not real League of Legends, or that's not the best League of Legends. So I don't know. I probably think that will cause more problems as the hyper competitive people try to sort of end up in a Dota clone situation. And then people that don't like it and just like the original game, I think they're going to be deeply disappointed. In some ways, they may feel alienated from the game or the players they love. So I just think you have to be real cautious about that.
See, there's also the fact that League of Legends intentionally went off in a different direction than Dota. As again, Pendragon, IceFrog, big bad blood, trying to get away from each other as much as they can. And to now kind of revert that to bring it back more in line with Dota, again, philosophically, I don't ever see Pendragon agreeing to that because of that bad blood that did exist, which forced the creation of the company as well as the game. And yeah, we don't need more Dota clones. We need more things that are unique in this world. Rise of Immortals, for example, is almost a MOBA that's never talked about. More because, well, I guess the majority of the issue was just uninventive heroes as well as terrible graphics. But they tried at least something unique. They failed. There's still more MOBAs coming out. It's not just these 3 games that are out there. I mean, there's Lands of Chaos Online. There's Avalon Heroes. There's one coming out called Smite, which I think... And there's an Xbox 360 one coming out. I don't remember the name of it. It's a 2D side-scrolling, quote, MOBA. Total Biscuit did a big thing about it. But people were trying to infuse more uniqueness into their games because, again, if we have 10 Dota clones, why would you play anything but Dota? I mean, it came first. It has the name to it. Why would I play something exactly like that? People want to go off in the different directions. They don't want to bring it back more in line. If keeping out denies is going to be one of the unique features of LoL, then it'll stay, despite the people that want to bitch and complain and curse it out and all that. But the people that are complaining are the people that used to play Dota. It's not the League of Legends community complaining about it. It's the people trying it out, saying this game sucks. There's no denies. I can't do a jungle stack. Blah blah blah. They're the ones complaining, not the natives.
I want to ask a question, taking this in a slightly different direction, to something we touched on earlier. Let's say an organization like VV Gaming, if we wanted to sponsor a League of Legends team, we wanted to pursue having a League of Legends team. Obviously, for a lot of events, Riot sort of flips the bill, so there's not really the general major expenses that are there aren't there. I'm wondering, and I suppose you could salary players in lieu of that as a way to keep them, but that's never been our model. Much more about developing talent. How does one find a good League of Legends team? And, are there teams out there that look for sponsors, or is it maybe the kind of community where that's not what they want, right? Because I think Halo, for example, is an example of a community that's difficult for people to come into. They're kind of insular. So I'm wondering how League of Legends, you think, is as a community. And we talked earlier about where do those up-and-coming players sort of live,
League of Legends teams are kind of based into two factions. One is self-sponsored because they're already established. Counterlogic Gaming has some sponsoring on the side, but they're largely self-funded. Same with Team Solo Mid, same with Epic Gamer, similar teams like that. They're self-funded because they have the rep, they're established, they have huge partnerships with Owned, and they bring Owned a lot of business. So they make a lot of money just from their own self-doings. Then you have teams that are purely, more traditional. They are sponsored by look at Fnatic, right? Fnatic Raid Call used to be Fnatic MSI, big title sponsor. It's even in the team name, Fnatic Raid Call League of Legends, Fnatic Raid Call Heroes of Newerth. So we do have those kind of traditional teams that are, they do have to adhere to a standard. They have to try to meet those goals of their sponsors. They try to make their sponsor look good. The self-employed teams, they don't have that kind of limitation, I should say. And I could bring up examples of hugely terrible behavior that would instantly get anyone kicked off a team, except these guys are self-funded and they're kind of known for this. So in that kind of term, new players, they don't have that self-funding option. So they do have to kind of go look for sponsors. And it's really hard to do it by yourself, which means you need friends. And how do you get friends? You play with people, and then you stick with the people you like. You play in the ladders, in the pre-mades. You go to local tournaments trying to show off your talent. It's very traditional. You've got to get yourself into some kind of resume, some kind of publicity before somebody will actively seek to sponsor you. And I think Sir Scoots did the best rant I've ever heard about it. You don't come to me for sponsorship if you're new. You establish yourself, and I get your name, through the wind or whatever pipes. Then I sponsor you because you're established. You're not new. You're not some kid that can't spell. So, yeah, majority of the times they pick up teams like that. You go to these tournaments, even if you don't do well, it's the publicity. You're showing yourself the skill. You've been together for X number of months. You have this many tournament plays, not necessarily wins, but you just have these plays under your belt. You show that you're actively interested in doing this. Sponsors will notice that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we're kind of split into the two camps, but new players, they need to get themselves into a nice group of 5 and show sponsors why they should be sponsored.
Here's my question, which is a very sort of similar topic. I hope it doesn't overflow too much. I apologize if it does, but it's something I've always been interested in. You see, and I hope you don't rage at me for this question, but I hope you understand what I mean when I ask it. There's a lot of there's a lot of past drama in the scene with some of the top, quote unquote, top representing teams. Epic for one, and their ridiculous drama with WCG. CLG with their ridiculous drama with MLG, and randomly thinking they can, use a use a different player when they knew they couldn't. Stuff like that.
Yep.
And there's quite a few instances of that going on. And I feel like there's definitely a lack of professionalism in some teams, not necessarily CLG, not necessarily Epic, not necessarily TSM, but in general, I would say that there's definitely some problems there. Do you think that that's because of a lack of these bigger organizations in the scene, EG and their complexities and the stuff like that? Do you think they're going to be able to actually tighten themselves up and actually, as Jerry would say, put on their big boy britches and and suck it up every once in a while?
Hold on. When do I ever use the term big boy britches?
Okay, that's a good point. That was like a mixture of me and you.
I don't even use big boy, right? I normally say nice things like grow the fuck up and stop being fucking immature, and that's not
sounds more like
funny.
Jerry.
Like that.
Yeah, but we talked about
britches on. What the fucking
we talked about this briefly on the show right after IEM Kiev. How TSM seemed very bitter after the loss when I think Dan Den and those guys gave an interview. I think it was Dan Den, right? That's correct, right? No, Reginald. I'm sorry.
We're talking about M5.
We're talking about TSM right after they lost.
Against M5.
Against M5, huh?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so right after they lost, and he gave the interview, and it was very, very somber. He said some things that weren't very proper, I suppose you could say. Stuff like that. And we talked about that, about how, immature that was, and he's kind of known for doing some stuff like that. So, but do you think that's just a missing link that, these big organizations, or do you think they'll eventually grow up and, kind of get over it?
There's definitely no doubt in my mind that our scene is very young. I mean, we're like, less than 2 years established now, ever since that first DreamHack. I think 2010, I think, was our DreamHack. Yes, I'm going to go with 2010 was the DreamHack that, we hit 200,000 viewers, and people were like, why are people watching this game? Yeah, that's kind of like the big kickoff that we had. National ESL helped foster a lot of growth there. And yeah, we're young, and these self-funded teams, as I said, they don't have a standard that they need to adhere to in order to keep their sponsorship. So yes, there are teams that can be very ragey. There are instances of our streamers literally getting banned on their stream from the game because they're violating the summoner's agreement. Riot, thank God, is not that selective or favoritist. And if we have proof that you're breaking, the agreement that you agreed, don't screw over other players, don't force this to be a bad experience for people. Play, by the rules, finish the game, be helpful, not a hindrance. So yeah, if you break those codes, that's why the tribunal is there, and that's why they get so many tribunal votes every day. But Riot watches these guys. So Saint Vicious has been banned out of his stream. Counter Logic, Ocelot, people like these big time streamers have literally been banned right out because of misbehavior, because of raging, because they're trolling. But no, there's no doubt in my mind that we're very young and we have yet to hit kind of a professional standard of any mean. There's good guys out there. There's good, nice professional guys. Guardsman Bob, a lot of the Fnatic guys, they're usually well-mannered. They've got featured streams now on Riot because of their well-mannered and, professional-ish attitude. But then you got your ragers, TSM, CLG. They're really well known for it. But people love it. That's why they go back to their streams. They don't want to watch professional. And that's kind of detrimental when you want to talk about those big organizations getting into the scene. Why would they jump into this, pit of vipers, so to speak? I think that's one of the reasons why EG hasn't picked up a real team, because they just don't care for it. It's not up to their professional standard.
I think that's a good guess. I think another one would be, probably the up and down ways of who the actual best team is thing, too. So
best team is always subjective.
Yeah.
You ask 10, 20, 30 different summoners, they're all going to list a different team.
Yep. All right, Jerry. Back to you, buddy.
Well, I think I wanted I wanted to see a better picture of League of Legends than you're giving, but I think you're right. I mean, it does have some work ahead of it to kind of find its identity, as well as sort of understand how the bigger picture works. You know, there's sort of a time and place for everything, and just figuring out when those time and places are. I mean, raging on their personal stream, which could be entertaining. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say I enjoy ranting on this show when I do. So, you know, people like that. So definitely I think that, you know, there's a place for it. But obviously, you know, I think there are other things and other times when it's not appropriate. And then just sort of, like you said, maturing. You didn't use those words, but I think that's what you're sort of pointing to, is they gain more experience and see, you know what, maybe that really wasn't a good idea. That really wasn't appropriate. And when Riot cracks down, it definitely sends a clear signal to those players of what is and is not sort of the kind of behavior Riot wants to see, which I think is good. As we're getting ready to wind down here, I was going to ask you, you are sort of a caster. Give us a little bit sort of history of your background as to what you do professionally, because you're going to be doing web work for TSM, aren't you? Team Solomon picked you up. Tell us that story of what you do and what you will be doing.
All right. Well, way before, going all the way back to the summer of, I think it was 1993, was the release of Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. I might be wrong on the year, but either way back in the day, Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans came out. I loaded it up on 30 floppy disks, and we had a meg of RAM. It was the best in the house. And I played Warcraft, and that forever really kind of changed my perception on what I want my future to be. I want my future to be this. Now, at the time, I didn't even think to be playing that professionally, and that's never really become a goal of mine. But I wanted to be a developer. I wanted to make entertainment like Blizzard was making entertainment. And then, you know, Warcraft 2 came out, StarCraft, Diablo, the Command & Conquer series were amazing. And the more I got exposed to video games, the more it just really solidified, I want to make video games. Unfortunately, life took a little bit of a twist, and the Ontario school system here in Canada took a dive. Thank you, Mike Harris, the high school dropout who redesigned the high school curriculum. That's a personal issue of mine, but my focus kind of changed in high school from actual programming to web development. And I graduated high school, went into university. I have a computer science degree. Nothing fancy, but I also really don't use much of it in my day-to-day job. And I've been doing website development ever since. It's, I think professionally 6 years now, something like that. It's been a while. Right now, I work at York University. I take care of the ESL unit, and I do all the web development in multiple languages. And I mean, like, you know, Chinese, Italian, Spanish, all that. Not
so ESL, which
languages.
is a second language that you.
Yeah, it's not eSports at a university. That never happens here in Canada. But yeah, this is, people come here to learn English. So I've been doing web development for them for 3 years. I've been at York University, believe it or not, for 17 years, ever since grade 6, because my parents work at the university. So I've been there a long time, and I've been helping do websites for York University since my high school days, which is now past a decade. So professionally, out of university, I do web development. So front end, CSS, HTML, back end, PHP, SQL, ASP.NET, JavaScript, jQuery. You know, basically anything to do with the web, I've probably done. I do minor graphic design. I can't make pretty graphics. That's just not me. But I love putting them together. Give me a Photoshop file. I slice and I dice and I make it pretty on the web. And that's what I do. And I did some freelance work for Team Solo Mid about a year and a half ago. And if you've ever been to the site and you've logged in and you wanted to make a guide for any of the heroes, a lot of the JavaScript, jQuery, and all the talents and runes was me. I did all the development work there in terms of the front end, not any of the back end, just all in the front end. So all the JavaScript, all the CSS, and that was really cool. And they paid me a freelance fee. It was a one-time fee. Apparently, my code is still running, and it's never needed maintenance, and it's people still using it. So I noticed the other day, Solamid had a paid developer position up there. I'm like, hey, bro, because they, it's totally Solamid. You always talk about bro. Hey, bro, what's that developer position up? Oh, you interested? Like, yeah, what are some of the details? So they tell me all the details, and I'm like, that sounds really cool. They're like, great, you start Monday. I'm like, what? That's literally how the conversation went. So yeah, I've been now hired to take over the Team Solamid website for front end and back end development, and I start in 2 weeks today. So it's kind of cool how it all came together, but it's really nice to be appreciated sometimes.
Well, congratulations. That's good. I'm assuming it's contract work, right?
It's a contract position, but as long as I don't screw it up, they'll keep hiring me. So
Good. Well, good. Every little bit helps.
That's a big step towards the whole developing video games. Now I'm doing video game websites. Yeah, that's pretty close, right? It's pretty close.
Well, at this point, I know we got to wrap it up. I'm getting the evil eye here of time. So I want to give you a chance to give any shout-outs you want before we let you go, sir.
Well, big shout-out to VVV. What happened to Amenta? I don't see that kid anymore.
Kraft has gotten involved in he's from British Columbia, and he actually works in the video game business, believe it or not. He is a graphic artist, works on movies, cartoons, animated features, worked on video games. So he is sort of professional in that space. So when he gets a contract sometimes, he gets really, really busy because they have horrible, horrible deadlines. Mm-hmm. And through that, in that creative space, he tends to meet a lot of cool people, and he got involved in some video work. If you follow his Twitter, he just put out a video following a famous Canadian, I couldn't tell, I don't know who he is. He might be a kickboxer, might be an MMA. I think he's a mixed martial artist now that I think about it. So, I mean, he's been involved in that. So he's always busy, but he's always around too. Just not a lot of time for gaming right now.
Yeah, I saw that, he started all that commentating, but I just haven't seen anything from him in a while. So big shout out to him, VVV Gaming, Jerry and Paradise. I've actually met you guys. The other person in the call, Curt, I think.
Yeah,
Curt?
Kurt's from Czech.
No, never. Yeah, that's for you, buddy.
Well, a big fan of whatever you guys do. I have a whole bunch of VVV Gaming guys on my Twitter, so I'm always interested in your opinions. And I believe I can still buy the MLG Arena and support you guys today, right?
You sure can.
Yep.
We would appreciate that.
I have my Wisdom Teeth coming out Friday, so all weekend I'm just going to be sitting in front of the Idiot Box watching StarCraft. So
well, I'll invite you to come join us. Jason, make sure he has our Mumble.
I won't be talking. Yeah. I'm going to get my Wisdom
You can come in and listen. We have entertaining Mumble. It'll be entertaining. You can sort of idle in there and listen as we talk StarCraft all weekend. I'm going to start talking about shit about some players. I got to mix things up a little bit.
I'll be listening, I suppose.
We'll be doing a big get-together in Mumble, so come join us.
I might just do that. But, big thanks again to Team Solamid. They're giving me my big shot here at video gaming. And my lovely wife, who's been sitting through this whole conversation over here.
Bring her on. Let her say hi.
Her name is?
Say hi.
Oh.
Hello. Well, I can't hear them this way. Hello.
Hello. You're very supportive. Thank you.
It's not a problem.
Now I have to ask, what have you been doing over there? You're playing League of Legends, aren't you?
No, I'm playing WoW right now.
Oh no! No! Step away from the laptop.
That's a WoW household, proving that husband and wife that WoW together stay together. That's my story. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it's nice talking to everyone.
Cool.
Where am I now? Well, I'm still farming, so I'm.
Wow, you got her farming. Look, he's like, all right, we'll end that segment of there.
You guys aren't even the slightest bit interesting right now. I'm right now.
I was killing some earlier, but then I kind of got bored. So, unfortunately, I can't. I've heard the story about Shaun's new job many times now, so I am less entertained by it.
Oh, you can see poor Shaun over here just dying. He's like, oh no, why did they
frame that for a minute? I just want to frame that. I would rather grind mindlessly in WoW than have to sit through another, oh, this is how I'm going to work for Team Solo mid story.
That's absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect.
All right, well, to Shaun and to you both, have a good night. We're going to let you guys go.
And to you as well.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye,
so
guys.
much.
Well, let's say bye to Shaun real quick.
Yeah, most definitely. Shaun,
All right,
thank you
Shaun, we're
so
going to
much.
just letting you know we're going to let you go.
Yep. I heard.
And we appreciate all that you do, and keep doing it. And good luck with the development on Team Solo Mid. I hope that goes well.
Yeah.
And we'll be in touch soon. Take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks again, guys. It was a pleasure.
All right, bye. I feel educated.
I'm in the
learning
call,
things
too.
about. I learned things about the League of Legends community.
Poor Rapture. I'm in the call too. I'm sorry, I had to take someone's picture out, and the intern is the guy we get to kick around. So, you just kind of had to disappear for a little while.
I mean, like you guys talking League of Legends, I'm just like, what is going on? But I'm probably the least affluent in League of Legends than anyone else here, so I'm sure it works out.
It's all right. We'll have to get you into League sometime and play. I have a mighty gangplank. We'll get you in there. It'll be some good times. But I think it's almost bringing us to the end of the show right now, Jerry. Right?
Yeah, so man, I've had ever since the pay-per-view rant and then MLG release pay-per-view, it's been really, really hard to you don't really. I haven't really looked at things in aggregate, just looking at all the comments that people make on game development forums and all this, and sort of the, internet, and which is a plethora of horrible ideas. Probably the worst thing is that you come to realize that there's a reason things like courage and honor and valor and being articulate and being educated, these are things you have to strive for. And you can tell why when you sort of look at the greater population. They're just average, which is no surprise. So you get average ideas and average gripes and average sort of, comments. And, I, for one, am not the kind of person who's going to pander to that sort of demographic and, coddle them and do all this. So I may not even ever talk to them again, right? I may be like, all right, I'm going to leave, other people to legitimize some whining about a $20 pay-per-view stream. That's not going to be that's not Jerry's what I'm good at. This week I want to talk about something else, and that is growing eSports. So let me start out with a sort of who I am, just because after that rant on Team Liquid, I got all this comparison to Rush Limbaugh by one person, and someone else said I'm not even a Republican. Someone else said, "Oh, LordJerith doesn't know what he's talking about." Of course not.
Of course not, Jerry.
What do I know? But this is sort of my resume, right? So this is a little bit about me and why I feel I'm qualified to give you the opinion I'm about to give you, and then from there you can take it or leave it, right? I really don't care. So to start out, I obviously was in the U.S. Navy, and I was a nuclear engineer for 12 years, from 88 to 2000. Did mostly pre-commissioning work, so I have a really good, solid background in engineering. From that, I decided I wanted to work much more around people, and really never met an admiral I wanted to be, or really be involved in politics, or be a career military guy. So I wanted to go to grad school, applied a bunch of places, got accepted to the University of Chicago, went there. For those who don't know, there are more Nobel laureates at the University of Chicago than any other university on the planet. So that was a really phenomenal experience. So by then I sort of gotten really snobby and elitist by then, in nuclear engineering, this. And then I worked at Accenture, which is a global consulting firm, and I worked in learning and development, people enablement, talent management, human capital. So, and during that time at Accenture, I got to work at home a lot, and I also got involved in the film industry as a film producer. Working here in Chicago, I sat at the Illinois Production Alliance. So that's an important part of where I learned how industries can work together. A very important way that I learned how industries can work together. And so that background has really shaped my perspective on how esports needs to grow. I think now I work for 3 major HR magazines: Talent Management, Chief Learning Officer, and Diversity Executive, that are all aimed at executives in those broader human capital fields: talent management, learning and development, and diversity management. And I get to analyze a lot of data from companies like McDonald's and AT&T and Accenture and IBM and Deloitte, Cash America, Coldwell Banker. So I sign a bunch of NDAs and look at training and development data and do things like that. That's my job. That's my job in the world. So I'm not good at politics, right? One of the reasons I rant is because I really have zero love of politics. Jockeying for position, grabbing power, stuff like that. And after the pay-per-view thing, I started thinking a lot, wow, what does esports really need? What does it really need? And, we've talked to different people who've given insights and other things like that. And one common theme seems to hold through the whole thing, and that's transparency. I don't think we do a good job of being transparent. I think Evil Geniuses and Complexity and SK Gaming and Fnatic and Quantic Gaming and VVV and Check Six, and I think we all need to start being a lot more transparent. I think there needs to be some way that we can build an industry without everyone jockeying for position. And I also think that we need to really, encourage people to work with the organizations that are going to be in the best interest for the growth. Now, one of the reasons for the transparency is because I think a sustainable business model is needed, and we need to do a lot of planning. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this whole professional gaming thing is a joke. I really do. I'm not pleased at the state of professional gaming. I can't think of an existing industry that is anywhere as junior as what we call esports. And I think that there is way too much ego, and a lot of people are bullshitting themselves. In almost any industry, there's a partnership with academia. I'm sorry, but for 99% of the players who are in competitive gaming, they will eventually stop, and they will need to get an education. Some are doing gaming and education. Some are doing gaming and working. But a vast majority, and that crowd that we have incoming that want to be pro gamers, I think in a way we're doing them a disservice. I don't see pro gaming any more significant right now than, say, Magic the Gathering or anything else. Yeah. I don't. And a lot of people are going to probably pew-pew that, but it's okay. You'll pew-pew me. But if you want to be in the real world, if you want to be viewed as legitimate, we're going to have to do some things differently. We're going to have to be more transparent. We're going to have to think about the future of the players and how their education and what they do in esports prepares them for the work world. There's a lot here that needs to happen in order for us to be what I would consider legitimate and viewed as sort of something that has a real shot at mainstream. And I don't think anybody would disagree with me. I don't think anybody would have a tough time seeing that we need to think about the future of our players, the future of the people who volunteer to do this, if we're seriously going to build an industry. I really mean that. And, I would love, and this isn't a joke, I'm not kidding. If I can look at the books and look at some of the information that I have about some of the Fortune 50 companies in the world, e.g. in Complexity and SK Gaming and you guys, I'm less so interested in your concerns as I am saying I think we need to start really looking at what this industry is, who's spending money, and what's the sort of state of the union. In fact, I would love to actually do a State of Esports annual report. I would love to do something like that, where we're all transparent and we look at the key financials from organizations like Blizzard. And I'll do whatever I need to do. I will sign NDAs. I will sign non-competes. I will never sponsor a player again. I'm serious. I will do whatever the industry needs to be transparent. Or I'll only sponsor players at a level. I don't think anybody's going to really come after our players now anyway. We don't go for the number one players in StarCraft and many games that may not be on the radar screen of the EGs or the organizations I'm mentioning. But I think we need to look at how the leagues are funded, and I think we need that kind of transparency. A State of Esports would help us grow so much because people could shop that around. We wouldn't need team reigns and private donors and people who are running off ego. We could actually do something really significant. We could look at how much money and time SteelSeries has invested, or Razer, or all the organizations. So I, for one, believe that through this transparency, we can start to get a better evaluation of what esports is worth. Instead of this sort of, let's face facts, it's delusionary. A lot of it is just, it's silly. Everyone, pardon me, everyone feels like, to me, like trying to make it seem like they're doing great and phenomenal, but it's all short-sighted. It's not sustainable. And in many ways, it feels like a little bit of a, I'm going to one-up myself, or I'm going to spend money and show you how great we are. I can't think of a single business that I've ever encountered where companies brag about how much money they spend. You certainly, if you were a CEO and you went and you talked about how much money you spent, it better be a fucking investment that's going to give a major return on that investment. Because what you should be talking to me about is how you're cutting costs and how that's going to drive shareholder value. That's what you should be talking to me about. But again, I know we have a very young demographic and a very inexperienced demographic. But I also know that some of the people who listen to this show do have professional experience. And I think it's really important. So it'll be interesting because I think a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's difficult to sort of pick up on what I'm talking about just because you may not have that professional experience. But we need a sort of state of the industry review. We really do. And we need to sort of transparently start to look at who's investing money in this space. What are we getting out of it? What are players' salaries? I mean, if we could find answers to these questions, and if we could start to share that kind of information, I think we would get a lot better results. I really do, as far as how and what kinds of people get involved in esports. So I'm just throwing it out there. I think we need transparency. I think we need a State of Esports report, and it's one I'd be willing to do. I get paid a lot of money to do those things, and it's one I would be willing to do for free. And I think we should look at the leagues. We should look at the sponsors involved in this space. We should look at the developers that are involved in this space. And we should look at the organizations who sponsor players and look at the kind of money that's going in here. I think if we do this, we'll all be better off. To be honest, there's just way too much speculation. There's way too much misinformation. There's way too much jockeying for ego. It's just not sustainable. And at times I feel some people just hold on hoping it'll hit big. Or some people have been around so long, they're committed to the point that they're going to keep doing this no matter if through their whole life it never really goes anywhere. And finally, I think we need to do this because we need to give players and aspiring young players a much better feel for what their career options are after they get done being, quote unquote, a pro gamer. I think all those things are important. So I reach out to Sir Scoots and Alex and Jason Lake and Bass, and the list goes on. I think we need something like that. I think that to David Ting and Sundance and the leagues, I would be willing to take a look at something like that. Again, it would be something that I would do privately and something that I would do with NDAs. My lawyer could talk to your lawyers, whatever it would take. I'm very serious here. And I think we should do something to start to really let the world know what is the value of esports. And I think this might be a little ahead of its time for those of you that want an out so you don't have to deal with it. But if we don't get more transparent, I'm sorry, we're not really going to grow. And at the end of the day, I do believe a lot of people that are working in esports want to see it be successful. But I promise you, you won't be successful alone. No industry thrives with just a select few. You need a lot of people working together, knowledge sharing, contributing for it to really go where we need to go. So that's my pitch. Hopefully this will be one of those that gets listened by those who really care about the growth of esports. They think about it. And you know what? If you don't want me to do it, then go ahead and hire someone else. I know other people who would be excellent at doing work like this. And I could refer them to you or their companies if for some reason you don't trust or want me to do it. That's how serious I am about this. I offer it because I know I wouldn't cost anything. But if you feel that there's a conflict of interest or you're concerned that you're going to be giving me some secrets and I'm going to come in and swoop, sure, go with someone else. Although I don't see much here to swoop upon, to be honest. So that's my thoughts this week. Curt, what do you think about that?
I absolutely love it. I mean, I think I disagree with some points, mainly some of the beginning points, but I think the overall point of what you're trying to say, the more transparency, the something where we have some sort of state of esports, because people are very, and I'm not just, the random forum troll, but I mean, a lot of people are incredibly skewed in their views of everything. Absolutely everything. There was a really interesting, and I know I'm bringing this up on the spot, but you I think it's very valid. A very interesting post by a guy named Tom McCarthy. He is or at one point in time was the marketing director, and now I think he does PR stuff for Quantic. And it was posted on Reddit. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? It was an image that sparked sort of a controversy and a debate between a lot of people. Alex Garfield being one who really tore him apart for even posting it because he thought it was completely unfounded kind of thing. And everyone else pretty much agreed. DJ Wheat posted on there. Some guys from Liquid, some guys from COL, Jason Lake, stuff like that. Anyway, it was just a simple image on Reddit. If you search for esports, I'm trying to remember the exact title. I'm looking up now, but Reddit's going slow. It was something like, "This is what working in esports is like," and it was a picture where it was showing him, "Here's what my friends think it's like. Here's what I think it's like, and here's what it actually is." And it's
I think V Spectral had actually commented because it sort of ends at the old man as a bum.
Yeah,
I saw that image, and I that also, and I'm glad you picked up that image because that's a really good example. Again, I'm going to be honest with you, and I just want to make this clear. Alex Garfield is someone who his position. Alex Garfield strikes me as a undergraduate philosophy dropout kind of student who does a lot of thinking and is very wordy, but at the end of the day lives in his own head, doesn't have those checks and balances and that engagement. And again, I'm sure that Sir Scoots would disagree with me, and I know Scott works with him, and that's fantastic. But I'm just being honest. And as far as thought goes, right, solid, clear thought, there's a lot of it, but the position that he places himself in and the viewpoints he takes are very skewed, right? I don't see, it's very, if anybody needs a real transparent look, it's Alex Garfield. I'm just going to be honest. And I saw those comments too. I didn't want to say much about it, but I think it really is something that people really need to take a look at. And if we don't get transparency, and if we don't get people opening up their books, and we don't really call out what people are doing, it's going to be hard to know who's really successful. It's going to be hard to know who's doing the best. It's all that's going to end up being, Curt, is a popularity contest or some kind of kaleidoscope where you just kind of turn it until you get the image of the picture you want to see, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of people really need that reality check, and even as Alex Garfield goes to Sloan, MIT, to do this talk, would not have been my first choice by a long shot. However that hookup happened. I mean,
and in the end, I mean, a lot of people in the actual business, quote unquote, business way of looking things, EG is the most successful North American organization. So I can applaud anyone that ends up going.
How are we grading success? So I know what you mean by that.
I would say for them, they arguably have the biggest income from sponsors. I would say it's a big one. I would say stuff like that. Yeah.
But I'm saying, but here's the thing, right?
You don't know though. Exactly.
Yeah, well, you don't know, and two, spending other people's money is not. That's not success to me, right? If EG was open their books and we saw they were profitable.
But let me ask you, in this space, for a team, and the most common model right now, I don't care.
What you're doing is you're comparing shit to shit. I will not do that. I want to compare shit to the real world. Like, we got to grow out of the shit into the real world. So how much money people spend, right, is not a business strategy. It is not a performance indicator of business success, right? That works for kids, but adults are going to look at that and they're going to kind of like look their eyes over like, did he just fucking say I spend more money than any of my competitors? Yeah, he did. And this fucking asshole thinks that's good? Sounds like it. Well, there's a fucking problem right there, right? So I'm just saying at the end, when we talk about success, we should talk about success in the terms that the rest of the world talks about success, which is profitability, retention, right? Those kind of things.
That being said, what team...
If we don't build it that way, right, then all we're doing is a bunch of kids going, I like this one. And it's like, yeah, that's really cool.
That being said, what team would we target in the U.S. for profitabilit? If they wanted the team aspect on a panel.
That's the point. It doesn't...
I understand the point. It's just, that... I mean, going back to that...
I think that EG has the best chance of being a profitable team. That could be true. Right? That could be true. EG could be the team that has the best chance of being profitable in North America. We don't know. Right? But certainly, right, we're not in a position right now, I think, we should not, is what I'm saying. We should not use terms like successful.
No, I agree.
We are not successful until all the people who've invested money in esports are making money.
Actually start seeing a return.
Absolutely. MLG. Whoever sticks through this. MLG, ESL, IPL, EG, Complexity, Fnatic, SK Gaming, Check 6, VVV Gaming, and the list goes on. Organizations that have, right, been around for a while, been contributing, they should be able to morph their model as this grows. We're sharing best practices and really demonstrate to the world that we're ready to grow and encourage other entrepreneurs to get into the space so they can help us innovate and do things better. That's the only way it's really going to work, right? If we don't do those things, right, then we're going to miss out, right? People have to understand, right, that it is not good to pretend esports is more than it really is.
Amen.
It is not healthy to be unrealistic.
The perfect, believe it or not, Jerry, Jason Lake on Twitter. Jason Lake just recently made a Twitter this week. Everyone I would suggest go follow him. For no other reason, he's definitely an esports icon. But he posted about this image that I was talking about, the Lax image, and he said, fine line between presenting a strong, united front to companies interested in investing and being honest with each other about the obvious falsehoods. I couldn't agree more with that statement. I could not agree more.
I agree. And I mean, I think anybody here's the thing. I'm not a kid, right? I have real world experience. So it's hard for me to sort of sit there and like what's that new organization, Dust Bunnies or whatever they're called? Like, it's hard for me when I read stuff like that to go, wow, and how are you going to make this profitable? right? Again, spending money is not a sign of success, right? From day one, I have rejected that notion, watching my peers fold one business after the other, right? That's not a business strategy. And we have to start being honest about that. And I think a state of the industry report would be fantastic. Every other legitimate industry has one. Why don't we get one for esports, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I suspect everybody's hurting. I really do. I think MLG knows, because they've got smart people behind them, they have to push. The economy is getting better. Now is the time to latch on to that extra income. That, to me, is right out of a textbook. Makes perfect sense for me, regardless of what the fucking business experts on Team Liquid have to say about it, right? The fucking so-called, what did you fucking poor community that's dismissed, right? But for the other leagues, for the other situations, IPL shed some things. I'm sure they've got to tighten belts and be careful. Again, I don't know. Nazzle's privately funded, however long that lasts. Even ESL, who I think is doing well, Carmack's interview on Forbes, although that there were some statements in there that were just not true about like where television is. Maybe in Germany it's that way, but not North America. But I don't want to get into that. The point at the end is that no matter how many articles are written, no matter how much we talk about this, we're going to need to get transparent at some point. And we're going to need to be able to share information, share best practices, and sort of grow this industry together. And if we don't, right, what is going to happen, probably, is that if a league gets successful, if, or some institution decides to come in and says, I'm going to invest a lot of money, just going to buy all these people out and send them down the road, right? Because really, to me, if your business model is clinging to players, and once we take your players away, you're nothing, you got to be careful, right? You have to be careful about those things, right? And we have to start to look at what will that mean. So I'm just saying, again, we need transparency. We need to find some way to look at the developers, the leagues, the teams, and the sponsors that are putting money into esports. We need to see where that money's going. We need to see who's getting a return where. We need to share best practices, and we need to help organizations grow. That means.
And if we have nothing to hide, then something like that can only help us. That's the point.
The truth is, we don't have anything to hide. We're fucking broke. There is no fucking money here. There's no fucking corporate secrets here. We don't do anything, right? We're entertainment. There's nothing being produced here per se. I know some people are going to say there's streams and stream shows, and Jerry, you do live. I get it, but it's not enough. So until we get to the point where we get everybody to be transparent, I don't think we're ever going to go where we need to go. Matter of fact, I had somebody on Twitter right now go, hey, LordJerith, how about you post your numbers? What's the state of VVV? Is that a legitimate question? Or is that just a troll like, haha, you won't do it, right? If you ever come to our website, I've put our site traffic up, pictures from Google Analytics. It's all in our forums from our desk. We do surveys where we get responses, and I put the N up there. We're as transparent as we possibly can be. And I will gladly be transparent. Just to answer that question. Call me.
And I don't think it was necessarily a troll. He's Josh Engel does a bunch of stuff with Boss Fight TV. He's fairly well known in the community and does a lot. So he could be very interested. And I would tell him the same thing that Jerry told. I think Jerry's probably the most open out of anyone. And the point is not necessarily, in my opinion, from the way I understand it, is not necessarily to be open for the sake of being open. It's for the sake of trying to get it out there to the community to try to prove that what we have to offer, if we have anything to offer, and to say, to actually have some sort of basis to go by, like you said, that like every other industry does. So,
someone has to come in here and instead of, waiting another 5-7 years, paying a bunch of sort of expensive consultants to come in and help the industry grow, we should start doing those things now, right? And I'll be honest with you. Every day I look at people who are in this space, and I think, in 3 years you're going to have to get a motherfucking job, and you're not going to be in this space anymore, right? Your parents are going to kick you out of the house. You're going to have fucking bills. You might need to go to the doctor, the dentist. Shit's not going to last forever. So, a vast majority of people in this space can't build careers in it. Very few people can. So unless we get transparent and unless we start to get people to collaborate to set it forward, it's not going to go. And again, looking around at the other players, clearly I have the most experience and skill set to do something like this. That's why I offer, right? Whether Alex Garfield's ego would allow that, or I don't know, any other person's ego will allow that, I really don't care, right? I'm just saying we have to do something and be transparent, right? Otherwise, if all this is really ego and kind of fluff and, we call it an industry, we'll pretend it's an industry, but I think we need to get serious. And I think we need to start to really take an honest look at it, right? And if we don't, right, if all we do is continue with the same shit, right? And I mean that. If we continue with the same shit where we bullshit people into making them believe they're going to be pro gamers, all this other stuff, where when they're done, they have no college, they have no experience in the real world, their resume is setting them up to be a fucking marketing bunny or a fucking get your own product line entrepreneur or some other shit, I have serious questions with that. I do. I get to look every day at what technical skills are going to be needed in the future, and I'm having a tough time imagining how some of our top StarCraft players' resume is going to transfer into the real work world, right? Unless something significantly shifts in esports. So I'm just saying at the end of the day, right? I'm more curious who's going to disagree with me, who's going to say, no, I'm not going to be transparent, and the reason why. That would be very interesting to me. And by the way, I'm not going to go away on this. So let me make something clear. For years, I threw stones at Major League Gaming. My next big thing to throw stones at is our transparency. So if I have to publicly call out who supports it and we start working, if I can get some of the leagues on board, I want to talk about transparency. And then we can share best practices. To be honest with you, Curt, though, it might be really helpful that Alex goes to that MIT Sloan event so he can see how other industries operate. So we can see that those conferences are spaces for collaboration, sharing of best practices, and how people talk. It may pull Napoleon out of the sort of esports haze he's in and sort of open his eyes into how the greater world works. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I certainly do. I certainly do.
I mean, that's a positive spin on, how it could possibly end up, right? That would be one of the places where I think, maybe we'll get lucky and something like that could happen. So, like I said, sorry it's not a yelling, swearing rant. Wanted to go over my resumes so I could not be compared to Rush Limbaugh ever. It was the most ridiculously ever run.
That'll turn you off from ever screaming again.
Well, it certainly makes you think, like, hold on, like, I actually have some thinking.
Do you realize where I live?
Right, I'm in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Limbaugh.
Exactly. So the second thing is that, again, a state of the industry report, transparency, and look, this is probably my small rant part. I think a lot of you need to start setting goals for the next 3 years of your life. And if you're not going to be in esports, or if you know that clock is fucking ticking, it's not going to break and you're not going to make it. You might want to start going to school now. You might want to start your job now. You might want to start getting your shit in order because it's not going to work. We have had too many people come and go in this space, gamers with dreams, because they were bullshitted into what their opportunities are going to be. And if we're going to go mainstream and we're going to become legitimate, then we need to do it in very important ways. And again, that's not to say that in the StarCraft world there are many great things going on. There are. It's fantastic. But we need to take that next step. So that's my point for tonight. It's a call for transparency. It's a call for doing an annual report every year on the state of esports. I think we need to look at the people who are investing in esports. We look at, like I said earlier, the developers, the leagues, the teams, and the sponsors that are involved, and we need to really open this up. If we don't find out the information so we can teach others and share best practices, the industry is never going to grow. And I really feel that way.
Low man on the totem pole, man, but sign me up. No, just on the last note, to talk about what you're talking about with teaching others, I really want to try to do something, because I got a Twitter message from someone earlier about he was looking forward to hearing sort of suggestions about, starting an organization and things like that, and sort of running a team. And I think we should try to get something like that together one day, man. I really want to try to get maybe some kind of special edition of the Losers Bracket going, where we try to invite some other people on from other organizations, because I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the community. I don't think you think you're the smartest guy in the community, although you act like it sometimes. But
that's my dick factor coming out. It's condescend and make someone feel meaningless, once in a while.
But you know what I'm saying?
Dick factor?
I would love to do something like that, where we actually get a lot of people's opinions on there, and sort of share some of the downfalls. I mean, when I started my first organization, I was a complete idiot. I picked up one of the best Counter-Strike teams at the time just because, with no sponsors, just picked them up because I felt like it. Wanted to be a big shit, and then I learned the hard way. I don't want people to learn the hard way, because that's really bad. Either they completely ruin their name, or they completely ruin the community. Or even worse, they completely ruin the team. So anyway, I'd love to do something like that at some point in time.
Yeah, a while back we actually had suggested possibly doing a roundtable almost of different organization heads, and who knows, maybe we could get that coming on in the future.
Well,
Maybe
here's what happens, though, right? Here's what happens: they have to put their egos aside, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I mean this, I'm not in a position to have Alex Garfield tell me how to run something like this, right? I'm not in a position to have other people come in and be like, we're going to do this the way that we feel is going to protect our organization. That's not what I want to see happen, right? And every time these things happen, people essentially have very difficult times because, they can't help their own ego. They want to be out in front. They want to be front center. I'm going to stomp that shit right away and be like, no, show me your fucking resume that qualifies you to do this. If not, shut your fucking mouth and leave it to a professional. Right.
Yeah. And another unfortunate part is that, well, not necessarily unfortunate, but it's just the way things work. We all have different opinions too. We run things differently. But that being said, I don't necessarily think there is. I think there's a big difference between running things differently in a good way, and just running things awfully. Running things horribly.
Yeah, listen, I want the story to be that Complexity and SK Gaming and Fnatic and EG are highly successful organizations. That's the story we want to have out there, right? But we're not going to do that unless we take a look, right? And they may learn things from one another that will make all the organizations better, right? Again, industries share best practices. It's what they do. And I really think that there's stuff here that could go really well. I built VV Gaming to play a role I think is going to be critical in the industry because you have to have a talent pipeline, and you have to have a place where fans can come together and be social, and you have to do it cross-platform and cross-game titles, right? Because the future of esports will not stop at StarCraft 2. It will continue to grow. Developers will come into the space with money. They will attempt to do things to get to those esports fans. Look at League of Legends, a prime example of something out of nowhere doing really, really well. So, and we all those organizations, in a way, I feel, there could have been so many ways for EG and Complexity and these organizations to work with Riot early if there had been a forum and a way that they could have collaborated and helped everybody and everybody could have gotten better out of that. But there's no space for that right now. So look, I'm just being honest. If this is going to grow, We need the people who are willing to come to the table and treat it like an industry and be professional and do the right things to help everyone grow. So, like I said, MLG knew what it was like when I threw stones at them. This is going to be something I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to be very serious that unless we're transparent, then I think we're feeding a bunch of kids a bunch of bullshit. We really are. And we need to stop. Right? Because I swear to God, you get enough parents to look at this space, they're going to ask way more difficult questions than I am. And that's just the reality. So like I said, a lot of these people, and I'm just going to be honest, a lot of these people, they are going to need to get out of the idea that they're going to work in esports in the next year or two because the industry is not there. And they at best have good plans in place for career and work and education. And if we're not pushing those things, then we're doing them a disservice that's going to only come back later to haunt us. It reminds me of one of our StarCraft players' brothers who was a Dota player, big Dota player, now is not supportive of his brother playing StarCraft because he says Dota ruined him. Well, Dota didn't ruin him, obviously. But if we generate people because of being misled or feeling misled or cynical, when it could easily be prevented, that also hurts the growth of the industry. So I could stack reason upon reason upon reason, but at the end of the day, I'm going to beat this drum of transparency, and we need to do it well. All right, I'm done. Let's get this show wrapped up.
Indeed, let's do it. Let's wrap up with the normal outro. We got to give a big thank you to everyone that tuned in tonight. Thank you so much for checking in here on the stream, watching us live, or if you're listening to the VOD after the fact, thank you as well for sticking through, listening to us. We really appreciate you tuning in. We love putting on the show for you guys. Thank you so much. Big thank you to VV Gaming sponsors, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com. Additionally, a big thank you to the band Power Glove. They supply the music we use every single week on this show. Their X-Men theme, that's the theme you hear before we start the show, at the end of the show. They're great. Great guys. Thank you so much to them. Big thank you to the entire competitive gaming community for consistently giving us the feedback that you give us. You guys are amazing. Be sure to check out our site, vv-gaming.com. There you can find every episode we have done of the Losers Bracket, links to the YouTube channel where we keep the video archives, and of course also the audio archives as well. You can find it over on iTunes, things like that. All that'll be found over on the VV Gaming website, vv-gaming.com. Make sure to like our videos over on YouTube if you do watch them there as well. If you do have feedback for us and you'd like to share with us, the way to do so, you can get with all of us on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are actually handily right here on our pictures, at VVParadise, at LordJerith, at ENE Keyhunt, and at VVVRapture, even though we don't really let Rapture talk too much. We rattle his cage when he's needed. Aside from that, if you want to email us feedback, you've got the Losers Bracket at vv-gaming.com. Or just come talk to us. Come talk to us on the Video Gaming site. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get some shout-outs going on, and then we'll wrap this up. Rapture, since I just made fun of you, let me rattle your bars. Let's you give some shout-outs. What's going on, buddy?
Well, first, I'll give shout-outs to everybody who's behind Winter Brawl 6. We're putting on an awesome stream and keep me well entertained. Also keeping me well entertained is all the people on the Team Liquid forums for having the collective intelligence of like a Dame bred, like a brain dead squirrel and that kind of thing. But overall, just chilling, and all you guys for letting me speak every once in a while. I mean, once you guys talk about games, and I really like your StarCraft, man, I am so productive. But God, you just got to pick League of Legends and Counter-Strike and man. But anyway, just shout out to everybody who's doing work. I see Golden Boy in there. He's my dude. We got to talk more, but that guy's the man. And the fact that he's chilling in the chat right now, this guy does so much work. So shout outs to him. I'm giving that specific shout out to him. So that's I'm good for this week.
Let's pass it over to Curt. Curt, go for it.
I got a few shout outs this week. First off, I want to give a big shout out to ESFIworld.com. They have stepped up their shit lately. I'm telling you guys, they have. To me, they have really got to a point where it's a site I visit daily now. They do a lot of great new sort of stuff you don't see. It's not just a matter of this team picked up this player XXX blah blah blah. It's really interesting content on there now. The IGN interview when the drop rain, and I know they're coming out with some really great interesting stuff around MLG PPV, and all that amazing stuff. So please check them out. They're awesome. Follow at Brent Ruiz. I hope I probably butchered his name, but it's Ruiz. I think he's the editor-in-chief over there. Follow him on Twitter. Shout out to iHeart Esports, Jason Tugman. We had him on last week. He's at iHeart Esports on Twitter and at Jason Tugman on Twitter. He recently announced, just on the show, but he recently announced it today, the actual pictures to be able to buy for the first set of StarTale players. That's really, really big. If you want to support your guys over at StarTale and any of your boys over at StarTale, please go buy those. They're really important. Sort of last shout out I want to give, just a normal shout out just to people that tune in, week by week. Shout out to, I'm glad to see Golden Boy in here. I was glad to see Jedi Rob in here. That's absolutely awesome as usual. So really appreciate you guys, coming on and checking it out. It's really important. So that's about it.
All right, that leaves you, Jerry, and then I'll wrap things up afterwards. Take the floor, my man.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's paid attention. I mean, the past couple shows and the views and everything have been off the charts. Thanks to Mark at Quantic Gaming for being supportive of our rant. The rant episode, he had the staff at Quantic Gaming listen to it. Really, I mean, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start working very hard to really, talk about the industry. I think we need that kind of development. So I appreciate some of the feedback and comments I've gotten from people I respect and work around in esports. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate them. And I also, I think, want to give a very big shout out this week to the VV community. It's really hard to believe that we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary of VV Gaming. And as we're creating our, first ever 5-year anniversary jerseys, it'll be the first time we actually have player jerseys. When we look at, our sort of 5-year or staff shirts, all these things, these investments we're making in the brand and the look of VV Gaming, the community is just phenomenal. Site traffic is great. Probably isn't a time I don't go on the website and, there isn't either people in the shout box, but more frequently over the last, I don't know how long the trend has been going, but the actual forums themselves, we used to get, I don't know, it used to be just a couple of years ago, 50 or 60 people on. Now I can't think of a time that it's under 100 almost always. So, that's all the community. That's you bringing your friends, bringing other people, bringing a lot of guests, creating content, creating discussions. All that stuff really, really goes a long way. So I want to thank you very much. So all in all, things are good. And I also want to give a big shout out to our Fight Club. Congratulations to Rio. Congratulations to CD Jr. for taking first place and holding that check up over his belt, that belt up over his head. And then to Esoteric for taking good care of them as our Fight Club manager. So shout out to them. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, with that being said, I do actually have a couple shout outs as well this week before we end the show. Personally, I want to give a big shout out to VVV Asai, who actually did just win another Guitar Hero tournament out in Los Angeles at, I believe it was called Power Surge. Star Slayer ended up running that tournament. He took home over $1,000 in prizes. Pretty incredible. Congrats to him for another amazing performance. Really cool to think that there's been 4 Rhythm Gaming Guitar Hero tournaments this year so far in the United States, and that VV Gaming has taken home first in all 4. I am very proud of that. So great job to Alec. He is just wonderful representation for us. Additionally, I actually want to add to that and thank the Guitar Hero brand. Shout out to Eric for all of his help. He's going to be helping us, put together, helping us market this invitational that we're going to be doing on the 10th of March. So look for some details to come out about that tomorrow. If you are interested, we would love to have you here on the stream to help support this, because this could be a lot of fun. We don't know until we try. Last but not least, I want to thank everybody that's here in the stream, sticking here till the end. We got Spike, Talent, Arcane, Biscuit, Barbosa, and Golden Boy. Saw Jedi Rob in here earlier. Medusa was here as well. Thank you all so much for sticking around, enjoying the show. We look forward to your feedback. And I think that we're just about here to wrap up the show now at this point. So actually, that just reminded me of something. Not next week. We will be taking a week off next week, Jerry. I do believe that you actually have something to be doing next week, correct?
Indeed, yes. I will be in the Big Easy. I'm going to be down in New Orleans for the 2012 Talent Management Strategies Conference. I will be hanging out with talent managers from all the Fortune 500 companies. We'll be again doing one of those fucking things that happened in the industry. I'll be presenting 2 surveys I recently did at work. One on leadership development, the state of it. We're kind of in a crisis for leadership as the baby boomers retire, and a lot of people are having difficulty developing leaders. So we've been looking at accelerated leadership development programs as well as others. So I'm going to present data and findings and some best practices on that. And then I'll also be talking about talent acquisition. How the fuck do we hire millennials? And they work differently and they learn differently. And how are we gonna adjust that? So how are we using social media to find the right workforce? Here's a bit of irony for all of you out there. We will not have enough college graduates to fill the jobs we need in the next decade. And if you are going to college and you're fucking dumb, you're still going to do all right. If you graduate college, get out in the work world, and just do average work. And by the way, if you are going to go for a degree right now, I definitely would do something in the IT computer science field. Technical degrees are hot demand, and they are not going away anytime soon. So that, and obviously health industry is really hot. But yeah, we're looking specifically in New Orleans on what are the best ways to acquire talent. How are organizations finding the best success in recruiting the right kind of people for their organization, specifically new hires, and how do you onboard them and get them up to speed? So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's a good time to be in New Orleans. It'll be my first time back to New Orleans since Katrina. So, a lot of people said the city's changed a lot. I look forward to good jazz. God, I look forward to good jazz. So, yeah. So there'll be no losers bracket next week, as I will be in the Big Easy. Thanks for asking.
What in the hell am I supposed to do on my Tuesdays, Jerry? What's going on here? We got to find a stand-in here or something. God.
You know what? It's all right.
Hang out in Skype and talk.
Exactly. We'll have a casual conversation.
Put a show up called Losers Bracket Light. I don't care.
Losers Bracket Light minus the rant. Yeah.
Minus Jerry. I don't know how I feel about that. What we'll do is we'll still get on. We'll tweet about it. We'll say, hey, if anyone wants to come chat with us, we can do something like that. Anyways, with that all being said, let's get on out of here for the night. It's been 2.5 hours. Don't want to keep you guys here too much longer listening to us just babble about personal stuff. But at the same time, Jerry, I hope you have a great trip. And thank you to my co-hosts here, Jerry, Curt, Rapture. Yeah, I guess you too. We really do have a bunch of... You see, he's going to get used to it. We're going to just beat him around a little bit.
No, I'm not going to get used to it. I'm just going to let it build up. And you're gonna pay for it one way or another. Specifically you.
What? Hey, it's almost the 100th.
Because I have like 3 feet on you.
It's almost the 100th episode anniversary of your rant way back in the day. Who knows? Maybe we can get another Rapture rant. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
No. Maybe. Okay. You know what? This is over. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you 2 weeks from now. Take care.